3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and of course, as always, streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You can always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZachGelb. We got a whole lot cooking today. Mia O'Brien, who covers the Jacksonville Jaguars, she's going to stop by with us at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:20 p.m. Pacific today. Ryan Hot Take Hickey, since we forgot about him yesterday in his normal Wednesday spot, he will join us today in studio at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific Time. A whole lot to do, but I'm going to start the show off today with a defense of a certain quarterback that's still remaining in the NFL postseason. And I think you could figure out who I'm going to defend. But right out of the gate, I'm going to ask Stuart Kovacs a simple question. So, Stu, I'm going to ask you to put on your thinking cap. It's going to be the toughest thing I ask you for the next 3 hours of our radio extravaganza. I have quarterback A and I have quarterback B. In their last game, quarterback A was 16 of 25 for 177 passing yards with 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Quarterback A also had 7 carries for 14 yards. So quarterback A, one more time, 16 of 25 for 177 yards passing with the touchdown. Carries-wise, 7 carries for 14 yards. That's quarterback A. Quarterback B, he was 15 of 20 for 128 yards, no passing touchdowns, no interceptions, but had 7 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. So quarterback B, 15 of 20 for 128 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 7 carries for 70 yards with the rushing touchdown. Which quarterback would you rather have?
I think B, but I think B because the rushing touchdown and the rushing yards, I feel like puts him over the top of whoever the other quarterback is.
Right, because the passing was both rather pedestrian. It wasn't that impressive. You know, quarterback A completed 64% of his passes, had more passing yards, 177, had a passing touchdown. Quarterback B, though, had 75% completion percentage, only 128 yards, and tossed for a touchdown, but then added a different element on the ground, 7 carries, 70 yards with the rushing touchdown. So, quarterback A is Patrick Mahomes. Quarterback B is Jalen Hurts. Now, don't get me wrong, sports fans. This is not Zach Gelb with a hot take saying, I'd rather have Jalen Hurts over Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that. But it's just showing you, with Jalen Hurts going up against the Rams and Patrick Mahomes going up against the Houston Texans, I think the criticism directed towards Jalen Hurts is a little overblown. And Jalen Hurts, for the most part in his Eagles tenure, he has exceeded the expectations, and his entire career, whenever he is counted out or whenever he's doubted, he ends up looking pretty damn good compared to what is said about him. Now, yes, I'd rather have Mahomes over Hurts. Duh. That's the obvious statement. But you look at those numbers in those last playoff games, I don't see how when you look at quarterback A, quarterback B without knowing the name, why you wouldn't rather have quarterback B. And I think it's a flaw in the way that we evaluate mobile quarterbacks now. Because, like, Mahomes is not mobile for the most part north and south. He is more mobile sideline to sideline where he extends the play. And yes, in the postseason, he has more of an inclination to run down the field if it is asked of him. But for Jalen Hurts, he's not really doing his running sideline to sideline, east to west. He's doing his running downfield, and that's a majority of a big intimidation factor that it creates because you don't know whether you love Hurts' arm or not. You don't know whether he's going to run the ball, whether he's going to flip it off to Saquon Barkley, or if he's going to hold it himself and hit one of the multitude of weapons that he has, whether it's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, or a Dallas Goedert, who Dallas Goedert the last 2 postseason games has played really well. But Stu, and I didn't talk to Stu before the show. This is one of the rare days. I walked in here. I had a bunch of things to do behind the scenes. I got in to this studio 3 minutes before the show started. I said, Stu, how you doing? And that was the extent of our conversation. You know, nice Raider shirt that you're wearing. Hopefully you guys can find the head coach soon, for crying out loud. You know, that's what I said to Stu. But what Stu said, I think, is very important in a way that I don't think us as football fans have acknowledged it yet in terms of our evaluation of the quarterback. But when you have a mobile quarterback, the rushing yards have to be factored in to the overall performance. Because I see on a lot of these graphics, right, when they put Jalen Hurts up, it just, his last game, he was 15 of 20 for 128 passing yards, no passing touchdowns, no interceptions. A lot of times these networks, and also us fans, since it's a quarterback, and we've been told, right, most of us are lives, traditional passing quarterbacks, those are the ways that you win. Well, this is a new era of football. Like, look at the weekend that we're about to have. The 4 quarterbacks remaining, they all have some sort of mobility. And I would say that Josh Allen, right, is a true dual-threat quarterback. Jaden Daniels is a true dual-threat quarterback. Jalen Hurts is a true dual-threat quarterback. And Mahomes is a mobile quarterback when he needs to. He could kill you with his legs. But a lot of his running is from sideline to sideline to create the play and then do the magician things that Patrick Mahomes usually does. So you have to embrace the rushing yards, and we should really now be looking at total yards that a quarterback does generate. Because I was sitting in the press box last week, and people were like, oh, Jalen's having a bad game. And I'm like, he's really not having that bad of a game. And I also think people need to remember with Jalen Hurts, he was hurt last week. You know, I know that he was coming off the concussion, and he already had a game under his belt up against Green Bay, which that game I did not think he played particularly well. The Green Bay game, I was like, they won that game because of their defense. But what you saw on Sunday, I'm not going to say he's the biggest reason why they won the game. It wasn't a perfect performance, but you can't tell me that you can't win with what Jalen Hurts was able to do. And also, the passing yards would have been up, and he would have had a passing touchdown to show for it if A.J. Brown, on what was a dime by Jalen Hurts, in the down the right sideline into the end zone, just caught the damn football. Right? The ball was right in his breadbasket, and he couldn't catch it, A.J. Brown. You know, maybe he needs to channel his inner excellence and actually catch that ball. But you look at Jalen Hurts, I think the conversation that we've had with him has been blown out of proportion. And you look at the totality of his career, right? He was at Alabama, winning games at Alabama, wasn't really appreciated. Now, they pulled him at halftime and they were trailing up against Georgia in the national championship. And did it work? Yes, it did work. Tua Tagovailoa came in, and then in overtime, he had to pass down the left sideline to Devontae Smith, ironically enough, since now he's with the Philadelphia Eagles, and Alabama won the championship. But people tend to forget this. The following season, Jalen Hurts could have left. Jalen Hurts could have left Alabama. He stayed one more year, and it was in the SEC championship game up against Georgia where you saw Tua Tagovailoa get hurt, Jalen Hurts get inserted back in. He played really well, and Alabama won the SEC championship. So that was just a moment of redemption in college for Jalen Hurts. And also, let me add, when he transferred to Oklahoma, you know, not a ton of us, including myself, had great expectations for Jalen Hurts. But he got paired up with Lincoln Riley when Lincoln Riley was Lincoln Riley, not what he turned out to be today at USC. And Lincoln Riley and him were able to win the Big 12. They were able to have Jalen Hurts be in the college football playoff, and he didn't win the Heisman Trophy, but he was a Heisman Trophy finalist. And then you get into the draft process. He wasn't going to be a first-round pick. The Eagles picked him in the second round. Most of us shredded the Eagles for the time for making that pick with Howie Roseman. I'll raise my hand, including yours truly, because at the time you thought the Eagles had a guy who could be the franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz. So you had Carson Wentz there, and everyone thought it was a wasted draft pick. Well, it ended up not being a wasted draft pick, because when he finally got the chance to start in 2021, that Eagles team, not many of us thought they were going to be a playoff team. They made the wild card, and Jalen Hurts lost to Tom Brady in a playoff game. That's Jalen Hurts' first true year starting, exceeded expectations. The next year, all right, people thought the Eagles would be good, but you didn't think the Eagles would be 14-3 and in the Super Bowl. Where in that Super Bowl, I know they lost the game, but Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes statistically in that Super Bowl. Last year was a bad year. They started off 10-1, and I didn't think that Jalen Hurts did a great job as a leader. Sometimes Jalen Hurts is always just right in the middle level. right? There's some wins that you hear him and you would think that they lost. And I think when you act that way, you got to sometimes just show more joy and show more elation when your team wins, even though it comes from a good place of, oh, the job is not done yet. I'll never forget NFC Championship game when the Eagles last got to the Super Bowl. And I asked Jalen Hurts, to process, right? You're going to the Super Bowl. You won the NFC Championship game. Process, what this means. And he goes, that we're going to the Super Bowl. That was it. So you want to just see a little bit more because you could be winning. And if you don't appreciate it, that could rub some people the wrong way in the locker room. And also, I didn't think he was demanding enough last year when that team was 10-1 and down the stretch. It was a complete another bleep show. But then look at this year. Honestly, how did most of us talk about the Eagles heading into this year? They have a ton of talent, but you really don't trust that locker room because of what happened last year starting 10-1. The Eagles right now are sitting at 14-3. And they are 60 minutes away from going to a Super Bowl. So my point on Jalen Hurts is this. Is he perfect? No. Would I call him an elite quarterback in the NFL? No. But Jalen Hurts is a very, very, very good quarterback that could beat you multiple ways, and he is a winning quarterback in this league. He hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, but when you look at your 4 years as a starter, 9-8 wild card appearance, 14-3 lost in the Super Bowl, 11-6 lost in the wild card round, now 14-3, and you're 60 minutes away from being a quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles that in a 4-year run has been to 2 Super Bowls. How can you really bitch about a lot? How can you really complain about a lot? Stu, I would imagine you would like a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. If I told you right now for your Raiders, Stu, you may not win a Super Bowl, but you go to a wild card round, a Super Bowl, a wild card round, and you're playing in an NFC Championship game. I know for the Raiders it would be in the AFC. I think you would take that success and that production from a Jalen Hurts, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I wouldn't even think twice about it.
Now, with all that being said, even with my defense of Jalen Hurts, I think a major question mark heading into this game this weekend at Lincoln Financial Field is the health of Jalen Hurts. And it's not with the cabeza anymore coming off the concussion. That leg, I want to see how healthy he is because the mobility is such a big part of the game. And you look back, the one defining play to me that I thought was very troubling and very concerning is that safety that he took in that game up against the Rams. I have never seen a quarterback where the ball is snapped from the 8, unless if it's a bad snap, take a safety when the ball is snapped from the 8. That's a pretty good distance to make sure that you're not in the end zone. Now, I argue that the Eagles should have ran the ball in that spot with Kellen Moore, the play caller. They elected to throw it, but you could tell there was not a lot of mobility on that leg for Jalen Hurts. Now, I've seen he's limited in practice this week. I saw he was on the practice field today as the Eagles are practicing outside. I believe at Lincoln Financial Field was the video that I saw, not at their NovaCare Complex facility, which is right down the road. So the health of Jalen Hurts is going to be massive in this one. And I thought this was fascinating. This is Joe Witt, the defensive coordinator for the Commanders. You want to add a little spice, a little fire to this NFC Championship game between, two NFC East foes, I guess is the right way to say it, with the Eagles and the Commanders. Listen up to the DC of the Washington Commanders.
If he's going to run the ball and if the coordinator makes a decision for him to run the ball, we're going to treat him like a running back. And we're going to hit him that way. So that's their decision if they want to get him hit the way that he gets hit. If they don't, they'll keep him in the pocket. But that's what we're going to do.
I take that as we don't get intimidated by Jalen Hurts, the passer. So we are going to basically say, if you put your quarterback and you have your quarterback go outside the pocket and starts running down the field, if we catch up to him, we're going to pop him. And we may even pop him. He didn't say it, but this is the way that I took it. Maybe even after the whistle. It wouldn't surprise me there's an unsportsmanlike conduct, a late hit by the Washington Commanders this past weekend. I kind of said, was that Greg Williams? That's what I kind of thought that quote was by Joe Witt. And I have no problem with Joe Witt saying, they're a physical football team, the Commanders. They're playing above what was expected out of them. And if you're going to have the quarterback run, right? It's why I don't like when Mahomes does it, and he waits to the last second to slide, and then two Texans players hit each other, and it's like, you hit Mahomes. It's a flag, right? It's stupid. But if the quarterback's going to run, he's treated as a running back. Whether the officials treat it that way or not, that's different. But if I'm a defensive player, that's my mentality. But that's what I'm looking for this week. How mobile is Hurts going to be with that leg injury, and how much does that impact this NFC title game? But I'll ask you this. How do you view Jalen Hurts as a quarterback? 855-212-4227. And whether it's at Alabama, Oklahoma, or now the NFL, I think he's a very good quarterback, not an elite quarterback, but a very good quarterback who does the most important thing, and that's win a crap ton of football games. And to me, let's be real. What do you care about the most? Do you win the game or do you lose the game? And Jalen Hurts wins a lot more games rather than the games that he participates in and that he loses. So how do you view Jalen Hurts? 855-212-4227. Whole lot cooking today. Mia O'Brien, great Jaguars reporter. She's going to stop by at 4:20 p.m. Eastern time. We'll try to get her best educated guess on who is going to be coaching the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2025. Ryan Hot Take Hickey going to join us in studio at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time as well. We're off and running on a very busy Thursday. When we come on back, Saints, Cowboys, Jaguars, Raiders. I've given you before who I think they will hire. Now I'll give you, if I was doing the search, who should they hire? Who would I hire if Zach Gelb was in charge of the Saints, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, and the Raiders? Coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
So I like James Palmer a lot. Does a great job covering the NFL. And James Palmer was the first person, right, who originally was talking about Ben Johnson and going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then when he joined us, he's like, you know what? I have to retract that because a lot of people that were telling me that was going to be the case. It's cooled down significantly since the Jacksonville Jaguars elected to keep Trent Baalke. And that was like within 24 hours when you find out everyone expected Trent Baalke was going to be gone. Then Trent Baalke stays. And it's like, oh, he was basically saying that like the chances of that happening were basically donezo with. So now we know that the Jaguars job is maybe viewed a little bit differently, but how you got there, it's an absolute mess. So I don't think it's a job that's going to be that attractive. My guess for it right now is that it's going to be probably Joe Brady. That is probably what I would think. But you do have Trent Baalke out. So does that change the job? And could you maybe go get back a Liam Cohen? We'll have to wait and see. So the reason why I bring up James Palmer, though, has nothing to do with the Jaguars. But, Stu, James Palmer just had this a few moments ago. Pete Carroll to the Raiders is generating, quote, a lot of buzz, close quotes. That's according to James Palmer, formerly of the NFL Network, now does a great job with Underdog Fantasy and Bleacher Report as an NFL insider. I know you'd be very happy if that's the case, Stu.
Yes.
But I think that would be, for the first time, I'm trying to think. Because even Antonio Pierce, right, he was the interim, so you were fine with the hire, but it wasn't as if you were jumping for joy. That would be the first jump for joy hire probably in a while that the Raiders have made.
I would say so. Like, I liked the Del Rio hire. I thought it was pretty solid at the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't too crazy about bringing Gruden back the second time.
I didn't like it either because Gruden was an overrated coach at that point.
And, you got like Lane Kiffin in there. That was kind of a weird one. North Turner, Art Shell. There's been a lot of interesting coaches for sure. A lot of coaches.
Stu, when were you born?
91.
91. Stuart Kovacs was born in 91. So you had Art Shell. You had White as the coach, Mike White. Then you had Joe Bugle, John Gruden. Then you had Callahan, right? Bill Callahan for a few years. Then you had North Turner, Tom Cable. Lane Kiffin into... Oh, no, you had Art Shell again. I forgot. He came back. There's so many.
He did.
Lane Kiffin, Tom Cable, Hugh Jackson. Hugh Jackson was only there for a year, right?
Yeah, he went 8-8. They probably should have brought him back, but they didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
How it went in Cleveland, I can't really say that they made a bad decision there. Dennis Allen. Tony Sparano. Remember him? He was the coach of did he replace Dennis Allen? Is that it?
He was the interim after Allen got canned, I believe.
Del Rio, Gruden, then Bisaccia taking over Gruden. McDaniels, then Pierce taking over.
It's a lot of coaches.
And then Pierce for a year and then out. So you said 91, right?
That's right.
Just in terms of the full time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh my God. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 coaches, whether head coach or interim, since 1991.
More coaches than playoff games that I remember.
That's crazy. 18, they'll finally be legal. You know? That's wild. Wild with the Raiders. But Pete Carroll, right? It's such a tough job when you look at the Raiders because you look around, you're standing up and you're looking up at Mahomes and Andy Reid. Say what you want about Herbert and Bo Nix, right? Better than anything that the Raiders have. And you have Sean Payton and you also have Jim Harbaugh. And you don't have a coach right now and you don't have a quarterback. So that's tough. But you got Brock Bowers and you got Mad Max who, like, let's be real. Like, as much as you don't want to see them trade probably Max Crosby, with how far away this team is, don't you trade him now while he's still in his prime to just get back like 2 first-round picks?
Because even if you wait a year or two.
He's 27.
Yeah, so he's going to be almost 30, and then you're not going to get.
And will be 28 before the start of the season, too.
Yeah. So you might get 2 firsts now, and if you do that, that's probably a good move. If you wait another year, you might only get 1 first, or maybe not even a first. Who knows? You never know. That's a problem.
By the way, out of those 17 coaches, who is your least favorite? Just wondering.
Wow. It is between Dennis Allen and Josh McDaniels for sure. They were both almost equally terrible.
So Dennis Allen and Josh McDaniels. I would think most Raiders fans probably hate McDaniels more than Dennis Allen, right?
I think so. Those two were pretty bad, though.
Then do you have a third that you dislike? If you had to give me the top 3?
I mean, Art Shell was just a mess from the beginning. I believe that was the year they won 2 games. I could be wrong.
2-14. So you said the second time around, obviously.
That's the year they won 2 games and drafted Jamarcus the next year.
Yeah.
That was just terrible. And it's hard because it was just a terrible spot. And at the time out, Davis was running everything. And
the first time it worked fine.
Yes.
But the second time, disaster.
Not so good. I believe Aaron Brooks was the quarterback to start that season.
Aaron Brooks. Remember him on the Saints?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. I haven't heard that name in forever. Aaron Brooks. I wonder what. I put Aaron Brooks in on social media. First thing that comes up, Aaron Brooks, the wrestler, who's born in 2000. That's not good for Aaron Brooks. Aaron Brooks, the quarterback, there's no information on him. He's 48 years old now.
Sounds about right.
And last thing on Wikipedia, it says Raiders 2006. That's it. So, geez, I wasn't expecting an Aaron Brooks mention today. But anyway, when you get to coaching hires, if I was running the team, this is what I would do right now. And I think Pete Carroll would bring respectability, or you would at least have a chance to prevent the Titanic from sinking, right? Like, you're starting to sink. Now you just need someone to just, even if you have a few holes in the ship and, you got some busted parts of the ship, you got to just make sure that the ship can somewhat sail. Sail for a little bit, sail for a few years. So, yeah, I think the Raiders are trying to get a big name. They tried for Ben Johnson. It was an admirable try. Ben Johnson liked to go to the Chicago Bears. If I'm running the Raiders, if I'm Tom Brady, I would make Pete Carroll my next head coach. If I'm running the Cowboys, I'm at a point, so I got to put myself in the mind of Jerry Jones. He's all about drama. He don't give a rat's ass about winning football games. At this point, I would just hire Prime. I would just hire Prime, say bleep it. If we're going to hire Schottenheimer or if we're going to hire Kellen Moore, and I think it's now going to be Schottenheimer, like, what does that do for you? Right? When we had on Bobby Carpenter earlier the week, and he's like, they're trying to find the middle ground between Mike McCarthy and then Jason Garrett. Blah. Like, disgusting. Yuck. PU. Just hire Coach Prime. Just give him the job. It would at least be entertaining. It would at least be fun. So Raiders, Pete Carroll, if I'm running the hiring. Cowboys, I would go with Deion Sanders. And then Saints and Jaguars. I think the Saints, right, you're in a division that is not great. Like, you're in a division right now where Tampa Bay's the team. Atlanta, they're there, but they're not like a big threat. The Panthers, let's see what happens next year with Bryce Young, but saved his career, salvaged his career. I look at the Saints. I think they're a good landing spot for McCarthy. Like, you missed out on Aaron Glenn. Could you hire Brian Flores? Sure. But Brian Flores, without a quarterback, it's a question mark. So I would just say you bring in Mike McCarthy and at least have a respectable name that's brought in as the head coach. And you know what? The Jaguars, I would try to get Liam Cohen back. If Liam Cohen has any pride, though, after making that decision, I don't think that you go there, even though you wanted Trent Baalke out and they finally gave you what you want. But I wouldn't trust Shad Khan. I wouldn't. And you know what? It's time for us to really start just shredding Shad Khan nationally. Like, I don't know what else I could do after the rant that I went on yesterday. And you know what, Jaguars fans, let me just say something to you. I guess a few Jaguars fans are unhappy with me yesterday because I'm like, oh, that you got 37 Jaguars fans. It was tongue-in-cheek. It was a joke. I sat there for 15 minutes yesterday and absolutely shredded your organization and shredded your owner, who is a big buffoon right now. So if I make one tongue-in-cheek comment about the 37 Jaguars fans, like, give me a break that you're so sensitive about that. You know, it wasn't like I'm like, okay, I understand that there's more than 37 Jaguars fans. I saw you guys dress up as clowns, which I thought was very funny. But Shad Khan is an owner since 2012 still. He's 64 and 148. 64 and 148, only 3 winning seasons. And he's hired not as many coaches as the Raiders have hired in your lifetime, but he has hired 5 head coaches, soon to be 6. Think about that. Since 2012, he is 64 and 148. And they almost won a Super Bowl, which is wild that one year, when they got to the AFC Championship game, and then Brady had the comeback with my New England Patriots in Foxborough. But 64 and 148. You know how we talk about Jerry Jones now, and then we talk about David Tepper now, right? All these owners, Woody Johnson, all the punchline owners in the NFL. I feel like we don't punch Shad Khan enough in terms of talking about him. But 64 and 148 is something. If I'm Shad Khan, I got 2 names on my list, and I already put Pete Carroll on the Raiders. So it's Pete Carroll or it's Joe Brady, right? Pete Carroll at least brings some respectability. You could salvage Trevor Lawrence with Pete Carroll because Pete does a good job with the QBs. But I would just go for the young, innovative offensive mind. And whenever the Bills run in, I would go hire Joe Brady at this point because you were going to basically try to do that with Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen. So you get that third young, innovative offensive mind who Joe Brady a long time ago used to be a really hot name. Remember him with that national championship team at LSU? Then things didn't work out with the Carolina Panthers when he was Matt Rule's OC. And then he winds up in Buffalo, which is the quarterback's coach. In the last 2 years, takes over as the offensive coordinator and has done a good job. I know he has Josh Allen, but you don't have a ton around Josh Allen. But Joe Brady's done a very good job with that Buffalo Bills offensive side of the ball. So if I'm making hires, Saints McCarthy, I would then, if I'm the Cowboys, just hire Coach Prime because Jerry Jones only operates this organization with drama. Jaguars, I would go with Joe Brady. And then the Raiders, Pete Carroll. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. Zach Gelb here with you on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll take you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief next. Update time first. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
And here's a riddle sponsored by Progressive Insurance. What do your home and auto have in common? Progressive protects them both. It was an easy riddle. Learn more at Progressive.com. The Cowboys are trying to solve their coaching riddle. The answer could be Brian Schottenheimer. The two sides met yesterday and had a lengthy chat, and reports indicate they are moving closer to a deal. Matthew Stafford has to figure out whether he wants to continue playing. The 37-year-old quarterback said he'd take some time to think about his future following their loss to the Eagles. Rams head coach Sean McVay said they have to have clarity on the matter sooner rather than later. The 5 MVP finalists have been announced. There are 4 quarterbacks and Saquon Barkley. The quarterbacks are Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Jared Goff. The NBA is playing in Paris this afternoon. particular, the Spurs and Pacers right now midway through the third. It's San Antonio in front 80-71. Victor Wembanyama putting on a show. He's 8 for 13 from the field for 20 points so far to lead all scorers. Benedict Mathurin has 17 for Indiana right now. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
This portion of the show is sponsored by Hyundai. Now you can buy a new Hyundai from the comfort of your home at Amazon. Visit HyundaiUSA.com for more details. Mark Andrews has spoken. He did not speak to the media since he dropped that what would have been game-tying 2-point conversion. He has issued a statement on his Instagram, and this was from a few moments ago. It's impossible to adequately express how I feel. I'm absolutely gutted by what happened on Sunday. I'm devastated for my teammates, my coaches, and Ravens fans. I pour every ounce of my being into playing at the highest level possible because I love my team and the game of football like nothing else. That is why it's taken me until now to collect my thoughts and address this publicly. Even though the shock and disappointment are unlike anything I've ever dealt with before, I refuse to let this situation define me. I promise that this adversity will only make me stronger and fuel us as we move forward. I thank everyone who has shown me and our team genuine support these past several days. Despite the negativity, I've seen heartfelt love and encouragement, including from those who have generously donated to the Breakthrough T1D organization. Even when the moment seemed darkest, perspective can reveal that there's still a lot of light in this world. I'm now going to do my part to bounce back and contribute to it. Hashtag God bless. So respectable statement there from Mark Andrews. You know, I feel bad for the guy, I do. And that's a good football player, has had a good career. And there's just certain players, you could have a really good career and one blunder happens in a spot and you get remembered for it forever. Like, look at the late, great Bill Buckner. Had arguably a Hall of Fame caliber type of career, right? Some could argue. And Bill Buckner is remembered for the error in Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. You know, Russell Wilson, for example. Like, Russ is probably going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Has like nine Pro Bowls, I believe. Has won a Super Bowl. But the first thing you think about with Russell Wilson is the goal line interception. Matt Ryan, right? Look at him. You know, Matt Ryan, you could argue. Like, let me ask you this, Stu. When you look back at the NFL, Matthew Stafford, you think Matthew Stafford will ultimately make the Hall of Fame, in your opinion?
I do. I think he will.
You think Matt Ryan will?
That one's a little more tricky. I say eventually he will, yes.
So I was talking to John Kincaid about this when I was in Philly last week. And, right, John did shows in Atlanta for 20 years, Philly guy, though, and now hosts Morning Drive at 97.5 The Fanatic. And I go, Matt Ryan has an MVP. Matthew Stafford does not. But I said to him, I bet you Matthew Stafford will have an easier case to make the Hall of Fame than Matt Ryan. Because unfortunately, even though Matt Ryan has won an MVP and had a lot of really damn good seasons, he is synonymous with most football fans from afar now of choking in a Super Bowl 28-3. Now, that was like a long choke in that game, right? It wasn't as if it was like the instant Malcolm Butler interception on Russell Wilson, the botch ball through his legs for Bill Buckner. You know, those moments are different. That changes someone's career, but it can still happen even if you have a big lead and then you blow it. But you take a look back at Matt Ryan, it's just one of those moments where, you know, a lot of people, they don't say, oh, Matt Ryan was a great quarterback. They go, Matt Ryan, and it was the quarterback of the Falcons who choked 28-3. And for Mark Andrews, it's kind of a shame because he's a really damn good player. Now, if he wins a Super Bowl, maybe it changes, right? That changes. And if you win a Super Bowl with the Ravens, but until then, it's going to be like, yeah, really great player, but had you dropped that ball when you were wide open for a 2-point conversion, that would have tied the game. I don't know if you would have won the game, but you would have tied the game. And that's got to be just so gut-wrenching on a player. And I know, right, they make millions and they live a great life, but they're still humans at the end of the day. And I think we lose sight of that when you get behind the microphone or, when you talk about these players or cheer for these players or boo these players. You're like, hey, there's going to be stuff that we have to say in a critical fashion about players. I'm not sitting up here and be like, oh, you could ever criticize a player. He deserved to get criticized. You dropped the ball. You were the reason. It's rare that there's a singular reason why someone can lose a game. He's a singular reason why they lost that game. That's the one moment that you could look back to and you could just say, that can't happen. That cost you the game. But for him, he has to now go live his rest of his life. And that's something that when it's... See, if it was contested or something, I think it makes it easier. The fact that he was open, right, and the ball hit him right in the hands, and it wasn't as if, a defensive player made a great play and knocked it out, or it got called back because of a holding or something like that. All you had to do was catch the ball. And that's a catch that he's made, 99 times out of 100 probably? And the one time that you don't, it could really define your career. So I do feel there is some sympathy for Mark Andrews, especially when you read a message like that. All right, let's update you on the biggest stories of the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief right now.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All right, let's go to Sean McDermott. 0-3 up against the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason. They beat them the last 4 times in the regular season. Sean McDermott said the Buffalo Bills can't be scared of the big bad Kansas City Chiefs.
I mean, it's a mindset like we've talked about numerous times in here, right? And I think there's some truth to that. In order to win, you can't be afraid to lose, and I think those two go hand in hand.
I think this is the first time that the Buffalo Bills enter the postseason with an effort mentality. Like when they got to the AFC Championship game years ago, right? People. They were good, but there wasn't expectations on them. The 13-second game and everything that happened there, they made some boneheaded decisions at the end of that game. You go into last year, yeah, they were home. Yeah, there was some confidence, but there was still that fear, I think, of Kansas City because you had to still deal with the 13 seconds happening 2 years prior to that. This is the year where I sense the most confidence from this Bills team. Where you even heard it from Cam Lewis, who joined us yesterday. This is a confident group. Now, will it translate to a victory? That I don't know. I do think the Bills are going to win this week. But I think the Bills locker room, I'm not saying it's been in a bad place, but I think it's been in the best place that it's ever been since Sean McDermott got there and since this Bills team and this run that we've seen the last few years has been a part of. Let's go to Patrick Mahomes. Well, he doesn't think the Chiefs get preferential treatment from the Zebras.
I don't feel that way. I mean, I just try to play football at the end of the day. The referees are doing their best to call the game as fair and as proper as they possibly can. And all you can do is go out there and play the game that you love as hard as you can and live with the results. And so for me, it's to go out there, play hard, try to do whatever I can to win the football game, and then live with the results based off my effort and the way that we played the game. And so I think that's what we preach here in Kansas City.
He obviously gets preferential treatment. Stars get preferential treatment. It's nothing new. NFL, NBA, any sport, stars get preferential treatment. But I'm not sitting there expecting Mahomes to be like, yeah, I got the Zebras in my back pocket. I can do whatever I want. I know I'm playing to a different standard of rules. Let's go to Rob Gronkowski. He was on Up and Adams with Kay Adams. I'm very curious to hear who Gronk names as the underrated players in this weekend's games.
Zach Ertz is a super reliable tight end. He's underrated. He had over 100 catches one year with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's top 10 in most catches ever. Zach Ertz is very decisive in everything that he does. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and make a 15, 20, 25-yard catch. He's going to keep the chains moving. Very reliable, especially with his hands. And he's great for third and short and in the red zone and keeps the chains going. So it's huge to have guys like that around a rookie quarterback.
Is Zach Ertz underrated, Stu? Like, he's old. He's an established name in this league. Like, he doesn't get viewed, obviously, in the same light as Gronk and Kelsey. I don't think he was that, he's broken records before, but I don't think he's in that level of greatness when it comes to Hall of Fame, but he's had a respectable career. And this is a big storyline, I think. It's Zach Ertz going into Philadelphia, a team he won a Super Bowl championship with, and now he's part of the Washington Commanders. Would you consider Zach Ertz an underrated name heading into this weekend?
Probably not. When you say underrated name, you think of like a young guy that's like a 6th or 7th round pick or undrafted free agent, not a guy that's won Super Bowls and been to Pro Bowls and all that kind of stuff. So I would say no.
Yeah, maybe because of the age, like he's a forgotten name, but I don't know. That was a weird one for me. It's like Gronk was basically trying to tell us of a player we'd never heard of before, and it's like, oh, yeah, we all know who Zach Ertz is. Let's go to Caleb Williams on his outfit yesterday at Ben Johnson's press conference.
The last 12 months for you have been pretty wild.
Yeah, that's why I have this suit on and this outfit, because I look like I was in the Matrix. That's how I felt last year. So,
Morpheus.
Morpheus, yeah.
I don't know, Stu. Is there an accountability problem in the Bears organization? Like, yes, it's easy to blame everything on Eberflus. Don't get me wrong. Eberflus should have never been the head coach last year. And I understand now you get Ben Johnson, so for Caleb Williams, it feels as if now your career is finally starting and you get new life. And I'm not saying that last year was really on Caleb Williams, but I just wonder if the Bears just think, that they're automatically going to be good because now they have Ben Johnson as their head coach. And that's what I kind of felt when I heard that answer.
We will find out this year.
Yeah, no, we will definitely. They're a fascinating team. Fine, let's go to Brad Holmes. He's not worried that Goff will take a step back with the new offensive coordinator.
No, I can't say that. Obviously, he was very productive with Ben, as a coordinator, but he had a lot of prior success before he even got here as well in a completely different system. And I think he's a better quarterback, a more mature quarterback now than he was then when he had early success. So I don't foresee that again. I think the guy's in his prime. He's gotten better and better every year. And when I say prime, I think like just entering it. It's because he keeps ascending.
So I think what the Lions need to look at is kind of Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni lost his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator when you go back to after they made the Super Bowl and lost. He lost Jonathan Gannon. He lost Shane Steichen. Was it always pretty? No, last year was a disaster. But they've been able to find a way to get that stability back and be one of the 4 teams remaining and be back in that Super Bowl conversation. So do I think the Lions can do that? Do I think Jared Goff can do that? Do I think Dan Campbell could do that? Yes. And also you look at the NFC, it's not as if you have a lot of teams that are really big-time threats that you think are these unmovable forces in the NFC. So what happens when you're a good team? You lose your coordinators. Is it easy replacing them? No, but can you? Absolutely, and I expect the Lions will be okay. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. We're talking a little Super Bowl windows next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Yo, Zach Gelb Show right here, Infinity Sports Network. Coming up 20 minutes from now, we'll go down to Jacksonville, and we'll see what the heck is going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars, with that incompetent mess of an owner right now in Shad Khan, who finally gave fans what they wanted, but I thought it was way too late. Obvious statement of the day, and finally relieving Trent Baalke of his duties. And now we'll see who they will wind up with their next head coach. So we'll connect with Mia O'Brien, who covers the team on a daily basis. So we will chat it up with Mia and get her thoughts on the state of the Jacksonville Jaguars and who the heck is going to be their head coach, who will be the sixth head coach that Shad Khan will hire. And the Jaguars, once again, are 64-148 since Shad Khan did take over the team in 2012. So I was looking over this list, of teams that have never won a Super Bowl. Because the Buffalo Bills are remaining in this postseason. You know the Eagles have won before. When the Commanders were the Redskins, they won Super Bowls. And then obviously the Kansas City Chiefs have won more than enough Super Bowls. But the Buffalo Bills have never won a Lombardi trophy. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teams in the NFL. So a little less than half the league that have never won a Super Bowl championship. In the next 10 years, so when we're sitting here doing this little radio show, 10 years from now, hopefully, God willing, in the year of 2035. Oh, my God. That's crazy. We're at 2025 and it's new. 2035? So I will be 40. Yikes. Still, you'll be, what, 43 then?
43.
And hopefully Santa will still be with us. Old man Santa. How old will you be, Mike? How old will Mike Santa be? How old would Santa be? Yeah, just add 10. It's not that difficult. 55? He'd be double nickels. Oh, geez. Old man Santa. Old man Santa. Oh, I'm going to be 55. You know, can you come on the radio show? You know, let's get you on. Ross Tucker, we need you. 20 minutes past the hour at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. But anyway, 10 years from now, how many of these 12 teams will add a Lombardi trophy? Or have a chance to add a Lombardi trophy? The Buffalo Bills. I think they will. Now, if they don't get one this year, you still always have a window that's open because you have Josh Allen. But it's one of those things where it's like, how many times can you keep on taking the bait when they have really good teams but they don't get the job done? But I could at least see the Buffalo Bills getting the job done. At least I would hope one time in the next 10 years. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. No. Instead of woof, woof. Cleveland, I just think you're cursed. And I say that in the nicest way possible. Like, you had a good young nucleus. You had a good group of players. Unfortunately, Nick Chubb has suffered so many injuries. Myles Garrett should probably request a trade, so his prime is not wasted. You take a glance at Cleveland, though. They went all in for Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson has been an absolutely mitigated disaster and a failure in Cleveland, regardless of what his personal QB coach, Quincy Avery, I think his name is. He always pops up on my Twitter feed. Now, when I see that guy's tweets on my Twitter feed, just always obnoxious, because he never criticizes Deshaun Watson because he gets paid to be his quarterback coach, but he criticizes everybody else. And then he goes after people that criticizes Deshaun Watson. And the Watson camp, they have the one out, right? They don't recognize his poor play, but the one out that they have is all the injuries that Deshaun has suffered in Cleveland. So that's the justification why Deshaun Watson has fallen. But it hasn't worked with Watson in Cleveland. I don't even know who their quarterback's going to be, but add Deshaun Watson to that list of jerseys of just quarterbacks that have been tried in Cleveland and have just been an absolute disaster. And the shame is, and I know that the relationship soured, right? Because they were sitting with a fine quarterback in Baker Mayfield, but he wasn't regarded as this great franchise-altering quarterback at that time. But he had them in the postseason that year. He won a playoff game going up against the Steelers, and they thought they needed somebody better. And Baker's one of those proud and prideful guys where if you're having Baker Mayfield being your quarterback, you better be all in on Baker. And the Browns, for whatever the reasons weren't all in on Baker Mayfield. And I get why they were interested in Deshaun Watson at the time, even though Deshaun Watson is a deplorable human being. But he wasn't in a jail cell, so we know this in the NFL. You turn the other way and you go trade a bunch of picks for someone, because if you have a franchise quarterback, you take a franchise quarterback. And we all know that Deshaun Watson was viewed as a franchise quarterback, and you give him a crazy contract and you give all those picks up for him. But it's been a disaster. But it's kind of crazy that they had Baker, and now Baker is kind of a bargain quarterback in Tampa Bay, and he has been spectacular, and the Browns will be looking for a new quarterback this year. But I can't see the Browns in the next 10 years winning a Super Bowl. The Chargers, there is some skepticism because I want to see what happens when Herbert gets a number one wide receiver, and I'm still a believer in Justin Herbert, but it is fair to question if he is I don't want to say a franchise quarterback, but is he going to be better than Phillip Rivers? Like, Phillip Rivers, right, has a good case to make the Hall of Fame. I think he will make the Hall of Fame. I don't think it's going to be on the first try. I think he's going to have to wait some years. But Phillip Rivers, right, has that feeling of really good quarterback, but never won a big game. For Justin Herbert, really good quarterback, but never's won a big game. So I want to see him with Ladd McConkey as his 2 and a legit number 1 wide receiver, and also someone that's a great coach, and we know Harbaugh's a great coach. You know, can I see Harbaugh winning a Super Bowl in LA? I can, because it's Harbaugh. And we saw what Jim Harbaugh did for the San Francisco 49ers in that 4-year run. 3 postseason trips, 3 times in the NFC Championship game, 1 time in the Super Bowl where he lost to his brother John. So because of Harbaugh, that at least gives me hope where I can see the Chargers making it to a Super Bowl. Jacksonville, forget about it, no shot. You know, Shad Khan is that owner. All the guy does is pick bad head coaches, and that football team, I'm actually, it's amazing. Like, I knew the Jaguars have been bad, right? When you have 2 years where you're picking number 1 overall, you know, in recent memory, where you got Trayvon Walker and then you also got Doug Peterson. But Jacksonville being 64-148 since 2012 is kind of stunning. Like, Stu, you knew they were bad. You know bad football. But to be 64-148 in a 12-year stretch, I'm surprised that it's been that bad when you take a glance back at the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's kind of crazy that it was that bad when I pulled the stats last time.
And like you said, they had one really, really good year, too. So if they didn't have that year, it would be even worse, which is hard to fathom.
He's won 30% of his games as an NFL owner. Roughly. 30% of his games, Shad Khan. Hot take of the day. I've had a lot of hot takes of the day today. Hot take of the hour. That's not good. All right? That is not good. So the Jaguars I can't see. The Lions I can. Like, Stu, to me, this idea that the Lions' Super Bowl window is shut. Where last year they overachieved. I know they blew the 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game. And then this year, right, you're the number 1 overall seed at home and you can't get out of your own way up against the Commanders. The Commanders just put their feet up on your sofa and on the table and popped open your beer and, right, ate your dinner out of your fridge and then slept with your wife. That's pretty much what the Commanders did. But this idea that the Lions' Super Bowl window is shot, done, and over with is crazy to me. I just don't understand why people are saying that, even though, yes, they lost their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, but that's what happens with good teams. You still got Dan Campbell. You still got a bunch of really good names on the offensive side of the ball, Gibbs and Laporta and Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. On defense, Stu, you get Aiden Hutchinson back. So I don't understand why people are saying now that the Lions' Super Bowl window is over.
No, it's definitely not over. I get people that question the quarterback a little bit just because, like, in most of these big games, he's probably going to be the lesser quarterback, but the talent around him is so good to where I would not put it past him to win a Super Bowl.
Okay, let's get to the Texans. I still think there's a different gear that the Texans need to get to. C.J. Stroud didn't feel like a big game quarterback this year compared to last year, but you have a young quarterback who's already in the top 10 conversation, and you have a young pass rusher in Will Anderson Jr. who's a stud, and a head coach who is well respected in DeMeco Ryans. I'm not saying it's likely they get a Super Bowl, but can I at least say that that trio is capable of doing so? Yes, I do. The Vikings, I'm going to say no right now, because even though they have Justin Jefferson and they got Jordan Addison, I don't think Darnold's going to be back. O'Connell's a good coach. J.J. McCarthy's a winning player, but can you be a winning pro quarterback? And that I don't know. So I think there are some question marks with the quarterback why I can't say it right now. The Arizona Cardinals, no. Kyler Murray's not the guy. You paid him as if he's the guy, so he's going to be there for a little bit longer. I like Marvin Harrison Jr., and I believe he's going to be a stud. I still don't know if Jonathan Gannon is the right guy at the head coach, but you look at the Arizona Cardinals, I think they'll be looking for a new quarterback soon, so therefore I can't say I could see them winning a Super Bowl in the next 10 years without knowing who that is. The Atlanta Falcons, absolutely not. I just can't see it. I know you got Bijan Robinson. He's a stud. I like Drake London. Michael Penix Jr. I think could be a good young quarterback, but I don't think you got the right head coach right now. So the Falcons, you got some good young pieces. I think they need a lot more before I could say, okay, they're going to go find the way to go to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. Carolina Panthers, they did a nice job in restoring confidence this year. You know, if you think about it, ever since Bryce Young was benched, Stu, I don't remember ever talking in a negative fashion about the Carolina Panthers. And I think the best thing for David Tepper this year, and watch, I'm about to give a positive comment to David Tepper, is we didn't hear anything from David Tepper. And that's big, because that's a meddling owner the last few years, and that's someone that couldn't get out of his own way, and he was going down the Jerry Jones path of the last 30 years, which is not a good path to go down. So I think David Tepper, I don't know how long this is going to last, but I think David Tepper learned some things this year, and I thought it was encouraging, right, with how Bryce Young played in the second half of the season.
And that's the most important thing, because if they played well with Dalton, it'd be like, all right, they showed some improvements, but at least you have the hope of a young quarterback that, who knows if he can maybe become something close to what they project him to be.
Now, with that being said, and even though I love the cockiness from Bryce Young when he turned around after throwing that touchdown pass like he was Steph Curry shooting a three-pointer and just walking away before it goes in, swoosh, I look at the Panthers, it's different in having some confidence this year and restoring some confidence and then thinking that they're going to be winning a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. I still don't know if Canales is the guy. I still don't know if Dan Morgan is the guy. And I still don't know if Bryce Young is the guy. But I'm now intrigued by Bryce Young, which is good because I wasn't intrigued with him last year. I was just very disappointed. Cincinnati Bengals. You have Joe Burrow. You may have to bring in a new coach coming up in the next year or two. You still have Trey Hendrickson for now. You got Jamar Chase. I think T. Higgins will go. Because you have the quarterback, and we've seen him get to a Super Bowl before, we know what he's capable of. Going back to his college days at LSU, which is one of the greatest stories I've ever seen covering college football, where Joe Burrow was at Ohio State, then goes to LSU. That first year at LSU, no one was ever talking about him being a big-time quarterback. And then he gets there in year number 2, and he's a part of one of the greatest college football teams that I have ever seen. And we have seen Joe Burrow be in AFC Championship games. We've seen Joe Burrow make it to a Super Bowl. I think the Bengals in the next 10 years, just like the Bills, right, because they have the quarterback, they could find a way to get the job done. And then the Tennessee Titans, they may be picking a quarterback this year in the draft, or they could be taking a generational talent, as their GM said, which maybe would be Abdul Carter, would maybe be Travis Hunter. I still think they're going to take a quarterback, so it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, or it's going to be Cam Ward, or maybe they end up trading the pick. You know, Tennessee's very far away. It's tough to pass up on the number 1 pick, but do you maybe just say, okay, I'm Mike Berganzi, I'm coming on in. I would think I'm going to get 3 years. I know the old GM that was just there only got 2, but maybe I'll get 3 years, and there's not a lot of expectation, so we'll trade that pick to whoever and then get a king's ransom for the number 1 overall pick. That's a possibility. But to say that just because you may do that or just take a quarterback this year in the draft, for me to now have this feeling that Tennessee go win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years, I don't. So out of the 12 teams that have never won a Super Bowl before, if you say, Zach, can you see them getting one in the next 10 years? Buffalo, yes. The Chargers, as long as Harbaugh is there, yes. Detroit, yes. The Texans, yes. And then after that, the Cincinnati Bengals, yes. So 5 out of 12. So close to half those teams when you get to the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans, and then also the Cincinnati Bengals. All righty, let's go down to Jacksonville. We'll do that when we come on back. We know yesterday, that's how we started off the show. 2 minutes before the show started, I was shot right out of a cannon, pretty much, after reading the news that Trent Baalke was fired. The Jaguars are a backwards organization. Everyone knew that Trent Baalke should have been fired at the end of the season. Well, besides Shad Khan, it ended up costing him Ben Johnson. Also probably ended up costing him Liam Cohen, too. When Cohen said, I'm going to go back to Tampa Bay, that was the light bulb that went off in the cabeza of Shad Khan. And Shad Khan then said, okay, I got to get rid of Trent Baalke. Now we'll see who the Jaguars are going to hire. We'll do so with Jaguars reporter Mia O'Brien, who's going to join us on the other side. Stu, before I take the break, though, I looked this up yesterday, and this surprised me. How old do you think Shad Khan is? If you had to take a guess. Shad Khan is how old?
I'd say like 50.
He's 74.
Really?
Right? Now, the more I think about it, right, his son is Tony Khan. And Tony, right, is established and has been around. But, like I don't even know how, like, now I would say what Tony is how old do you think Tony Khan? 40? I would say. Yeah, he's 42. Like, I thought Tony Khan was in, like, his 30s. I thought Shad Khan maybe at most was, like, in his 60s. You know, at most. But you're right. Like, it's not crazy. You said how old? 50-something?
I said like 50, yeah.
Yeah. It's not crazy to say he looks pretty damn good. 74 years old, Shad Khan is. That made me pause for a moment, and I thought maybe I was getting duped yesterday when I read that. But anyway, Shad Khan, that's the only thing going well for him these days, is he looks all right. His football team looks like crap. We talked to Mia O'Brien about the state of the Jacksonville Jaguars. What a tease. Next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, welcome back in. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Yesterday, we discussed the dysfunctional state of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I gave you my opinions on Shad Khan as we finally found out that he elected to get rid of Trent Baalke. A little bit too late, but now we'll see who ends up hiring. He'll end up hiring as the next coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I guess you got to get a new general manager as well. Let's go down to Jacksonville. We welcome in Mia O'Brien. Does a sensational job covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for 1010 XL, Jacksonville Sports Radio. And Mia's kind enough to join us right now. Mia, appreciate the time. How you been?
Absolutely, Zach. Always great to speak to someone else with a Northeast tri-state area zip code. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic and appreciate you jumping on board. So what was the reaction yesterday? Because when the season ended, everyone knew Doug Peterson was going. A lot of people thought Trent Baalke was going. We found out Peterson was going, but Baalke wasn't. And now yesterday, we finally know Trent Baalke was relieved of his duties.
I would describe it as utter chaos, right on par with if you've seen the Pursuit of Happiness meme or in the movie where he's like walking away and he's like near tears. That was a lot of people walking around the city of Jacksonville yesterday in absolute disbelief that this was their life. Cue the LeBron meme as well. Enough social media, pop culture references from me. I can tell you that both at my office, 1010XL, headquarters, a flagship station of the Jaguars, which is down the street from the stadium, people were in disbelief. I know for a fact that at the Miller Electric Center, as soon as people got the ping on their phones, it was like just the SpongeBob meme of people running around and there's fire everywhere because this was not something that anyone saw coming. I've been told that there were some inklings, we'll call it, in league circles on Tuesday night that this could happen. But as I've told multiple listeners today, even if I had been tipped off to that on Tuesday, Zach, I probably wouldn't have believed it until I got the press release from owner Shad Khan's personal public relations officer saying as much, quite frankly. I would not have believed that Trent Baalke was no longer the general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars until I actually had that press release in front of me.
So I know this is not a simple question to answer, and I always made the joke, like, what pictures did Trent Baalke have of Shad Khan? But why did Shad Khan at the end of the season insist on bringing back Trent Baalke? Because it made no sense to me when you bring him back and you have a press conference and you go, oh, well, if a new coach comes in and gives me a compelling enough reason to get rid of Trent Baalke, then I'll do so. It was just so awkward that they had that moment. So why do you ultimately believe that Shad thought it was the right idea to bring him back?
Because truly, Trent Baalke is his most trusted football mind at this juncture. In terms of advisors, in terms of people he goes to as an owner for advice, I asked him the follow-up question. After I asked him the question in that aforementioned press conference, after I asked would he be open to making changes in the front office if his head coach of choice suggested as such, I asked him, you know, in a previous era, in a previous life, back in 2013, you relied heavily on Bill Polian, then with the Indianapolis Colts, or I guess at that point, formerly of. Point being, he really relied on Polian in the search that netted him both general manager Dave Caldwell and head coach Gus Bradley. And I asked, who's that person now? And Shad Khan said Trent Baalke, assistant general manager, now the interim general manager Ethan Waugh, the coordinators, and Doug Peterson, who he had just fired 8 hours earlier. And that said all I needed to know in terms of where the Jaguars were headed at that juncture. I don't want to use the term that he put his head in the sand, but Zach, quite frankly, I just think it took 2.5 weeks for him to realize that everyone on the outside, I respect coaches, I respect front office personnel who say we don't listen to the outside noise. But finally, 2+ weeks in, Shad Khan realized that the outside noise was actually reality and not the vacuum that he was living in.
Mia O'Brien here with us. If Shad Khan at the end of the season elected to fire Trent Baalke along with Doug Peterson, do you think we'd be sitting here today with Ben Johnson as the head coach of the Jaguars?
If it isn't Ben Johnson, it would have been Liam Cohen. And I think that it would be with one of the general managers that I'm sure were in the binder that both of them presented in their first round virtual interviews to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, I was told in November, Zach, that Ben Johnson had the Bears circled from the moment Matt Eberflus was relieved of his duties. In fact, he had his eye on it for the last 13, 14 months, you could argue, since Eberflus first was on the hot seat at the end of the 2023 season. At the same time, I do think he would have been more open to listening to the Jacksonville Jaguars because from what I've been told by league sources, he is someone who wants to have everything from the front office to the strength and nutrition staff to the coaching staff built exactly to his liking. Now, he has a relationship with several members of the Bears front office. And so even though this is a front office that was retained despite the staff being relieved of their duties, I think he believes that he can make this in his image and it'll be a coach-centric situation in Chicago. Obviously, he was not going to get that in Jacksonville with Baalke in the building. But if the clean slate, complete overhaul that we referenced to Shad Khan in that same press conference that he said he didn't know what we meant when we said complete overhaul or clean slate, if that had actually been achieved in Jacksonville on January 6th, yes, I do think there is a potential chance that Ben Johnson's the head coach of the Jaguars today. And I think that they wouldn't have fumbled the bag when it came to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense coordinator as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think they thought, okay, you lost Ben Johnson, right? Shad Khan's like, okay, I got Liam Cohen in my back pocket. Then the news comes out yesterday. Liam Cohen's not going to go to Jacksonville. He's going to go back to Tampa Bay. Now with Baalke out, it's like, are you going to go stand on his front lawn, Shad Khan, and like have the boombox and say, baby, come back with Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville? Like, I have a tough time seeing, even though Baalke's out, that Liam Cohen takes this job now.
Well, here's the other part of it, Zach, and I just got off the phone before I hopped on with you with another league source, and he said, in the face of the rest of the league, if you're Liam Cohen, how can you say, I love Tampa, I can't wait to sign this extension, and then turn around and go back to those same people who you asked for more money from so that you could stay in Tampa and say, just kidding, I'm out. I'm moving 3.5 hours to the Northeast. And that's where I think it's going to be something that is going to be appetizing because it'll certainly be, in my estimation, knowing what Mike McDonald in Seattle made as a first-year head coach, I would think it would be double what he's now reportedly making as the offensive coordinator of the Bucs, so around $9 million like McDonald makes. It most certainly, in my estimation, would have to be a 6-year deal, which Shad Khan has never given more than a 4-year contract out to a head coach. And so it would have to be some sort of Godfather offer. But to that point, which I think is the more important point, how would Liam Cohen be perceived by the rest of the league? And if things were to go sour with the Jacksonville Jaguars, where else could he potentially land? That's where I think it's a long play if you're the Cohen camp to say, you know what, we're not going to go near that situation because it is a bit untenable at the current moment.
Mia O'Brien here with us, does a great job covering the Jaguars for 1010XL in Jacksonville. So where do they go now? Like, I thought it was going to be Robert Saleh when I heard this news yesterday, but now with Baalke being out, it's like you got to do better than Robert Saleh. You thought Robert Saleh only take the job if Trent Baalke's there. He'd take it regardless, but that's where you're kind of settling on. With Baalke being out, what's the name that you circle now that you think could be realistic that's better than Robert Saleh?
So let me begin this by defending Big Bob. No, not just because he was bossed around by Brick Johnson for 3-4 years. Robert Saleh does have the respect of Shad and his son, Tony Khan. Mm-hmm. During his time here with the Jaguars as the linebackers coach under Gus Bradley, many people in that building, many people in this city have fond memories of what he was able to do with the likes of Telvin Smith, Miles Jack, Paul Posluszny, et cetera, et cetera. And if anything, I believe the Khan family views him as the one who got away when his contract was not renewed by then first-year coach Doug Marrone, and instead he was left to walk to Kyle Shanahan's waiting arms and become his first defensive coordinator and obviously have immense success in San Francisco. So I don't want to say that Robert Saleh is not a candidate because not only do they have respect for him for his time previously here in Jacksonville, he was the runner-up to Urban Meyer. We all know what that decision looks like in hindsight. So I do want to put that out there. I don't want to completely dismiss Robert Saleh as a candidate for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But what I've been told, Zach, since October is that what the back channels were telling the Khan family, if they were to make a change, if they were to relieve Doug Peterson of his duties, young offensive mind who will call plays. Essentially, stay on the offensive side of the ball, but the complete opposite of what Doug Peterson was in the final month and a half, 2 months of his tenure. Someone who has the juice and someone who will call the plays. And so that is why you see names like Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Joe Brady, and Kellen Moore now expected to get second-round interviews next week. I would circle both those names as potential candidates paired with a veteran defensive coordinator / assistant head coach. Could that be Robert Saleh? Could that be Patrick Graham, who had a second-round interview today? It most certainly could be. It'll be curious, though, if the Jaguars interview both of those younger individuals and come away and say, yeah, maybe we got to go back to the drawing board. And it could happen. I have heard in league circles that there is more respect for Kellen Moore than perhaps the public gives him.
Yeah.
And that's league wide. That's not just here in Jacksonville, where he did interview for the coaching vacancy back in 2022 when it ultimately went to Doug Peterson. And so I'm curious to see, especially with the Cowboys, apparently. I went with Brian Schottenheimer, which loves Schotty. We had a great 1 year run with Schotty here with old Urban Meyer. So I have nothing but respect for Brian. But yeah, it would be curious if Jerry Jones does not bring his adopted son Kellen home, if he would in fact be a candidate here, or Joe Brady at just 35 years old.
Has Pete Carroll ever been, I know that what you just said, young, innovative offensive mind, right? I think Pete Carroll should have been in play, but, right, you brought in Urban Meyer older, Doug Peterson older. What have you heard anything on Pete Carroll front?
Nothing on Pete, but Pete certainly has the juice. I know that Jaguar fans love to text into my radio show, Zach, and they ask about John Gruden. His brother Jay does still live here in the Jacksonville area. I heard from a source in like December that Tony Khan talked to him, but knowing Tony Khan, he probably was talking to him about some wrestling promotion. Love you, Tony. So I don't want to say or start that fire because I don't believe it to be true. But yes, I do think that Pete Carroll would certainly be the opposite of Doug Peterson. But ultimately, Doug Peterson had the juice in his first year, and we don't know, and we probably won't ever know unless he writes another book. We won't know exactly where the juice was lost. Was it because of friction with Trent Baalke? Was it because, quite simply, the job just wasn't fun anymore for him, and he wanted to be with his family more, and he had, I don't know. I don't know the answer. We can only speculate at this point. And to those who have speculated about the relationship between Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke, look, I've had some people tell me that it was nothing but professional up until the end. I've had those who've told me that they didn't speak at different points this season. I don't want to believe what he said or she said, but what I can tell you is that it was heart-wrenching for people in this town and people especially in that building, because they believed in what Doug Peterson told them in 2022. And I know for players in that locker room, it was hard to see the juice and the life that he brought to the building in 2022, and suddenly it was gone come 2024.
Last thing I'll ask you. So when the coaching cycle kind of opened up, and this was before I knew that Trent Baalke was going to be back. Like, I was operating that he wouldn't be back. I thought the Jaguars, obvious statement of the day. I thought the Jaguars were the most attractive job in the market in terms of, You look, I know Trevor Lawrence hasn't been great, but you at least have a quarterback. Brian Thomas Jr. is really damn good. You have a good pass rusher in Josh Hines-Allen. There's not a lot of unmovable forces in that division. Like, the Texans are good, but they're not great. And you go to Jacksonville, it's not as much pressure as going to the Jets or going to the Bears. I thought Jacksonville was really attractive. How do you think the Jaguars, after what's happened the last few weeks, right, where Shad Khan, who the facts are what the facts are, as an owner since 2012, he's 64-148, and now he's hiring his sixth head coach. Like, how are the Jaguars perceived? Because when we get into these incompetent owners, Tepper, Woody Johnson, now Jerry Jones for the last 30 years, Cotton's name really hasn't been mentioned, but with what's happened the last 2 weeks, now his name is really starting to be mentioned.
And what's crazy is that he is the ultimate laissez-faire owner that makes the job so attractive. He's not going to meddle like Jerry Jones and hold impromptu press conferences after each and every game. He's not going to have his teenage son using Madden rankings to advise the coaching staff of what they should or shouldn't do. That's not how Shad Khan operates, although, you know, I've fielded more questions than I anticipated, Zach, this offseason surrounding the owner's son here in Jacksonville. I'm like, look, I don't cover the Jets. Why is the owner's son that much of a talking point? Tony has a lot of other interests. Like, he's not in the building as much as some people believe him to be. He's involved, but he's not as involved as I think some people believe. I think that it's frustrating, and I will quote my friend, CBS Sports' Pete Prisco, He said on our air this morning that from owners and representation he's talked to and people around the league, those owners are frustrated right now because they believe in Shad Khan. And what I said earlier about, like, I have immense respect for him, and he's a businessman and he's highly intellectual. And for whatever the reason, he's not surrounded himself with the best people in this business venture compared to his other business ventures. And that is particularly frustrating for those in league circles who, when he first bought the team back in 2011, 2012, really looked at him as someone who sat back, listened, wanted to learn from other owners and other people around the league. But now it's been 13 years. The time for learning is done. And it appears that either he didn't learn all that much in the last 13 years, or at the very least hasn't applied it and created the infrastructure that's needed to, at the very least, make sound decisions.
She's Mia O'Brien. She does a great job covering the Jacksonville Jaguars at 1010 XL Radio in Jacksonville. Mia, appreciate the time and all the insight.
Absolutely. Thanks, Zach.
You got it. There's Mia O'Brien joining us on the show. We'll take a break. When we come on back, a lot of good information there. Do I have beef with the NFL Hall of Famer? There's one publication that says so. We will get into all the details of that when we come on back. Update time first. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the Cowboys may have found their new head man. The coaching search has been underwhelming thus far. There are reports that they're closing in on a deal to promote offense. According to Brian Schottenheimer, the 51-year-old has held the OC position in 4 different spots. There's never been a head coach at any level. Once again, the Rams' off-season plans hinge on whether Matthew Stafford returns. The L.A. quarterback said he'd take some time to think about things after they lost to the Eagles. Head coach Sean McVay said they hope for resolution on the matter sooner rather than later. The Texans and team president Greg Grissom have parted ways amicably. The 5 MVP finalists have been announced. There are 4 quarterbacks and Saquon Barkley. The others are Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Jared Goff. The Celtics have held up well during this road trip with back-to-back wins, including a 40-point rout of the Warriors Monday. They're in L.A. to take on their biggest rival, the Lakers. Jalen Brown has been satisfied with their performance so far lately, as he has been a big part in their recent surge. The Thunder, the best team in the league, will host the Mavericks, coming off a loss to the Timberwolves last night. In Paris this afternoon, the Spurs with a 30-point rout of the Pacers, 140-110 behind 30 points from Victor Wembanyama. I'm Rich Eckler.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage, no medical exam, just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com, not available in all states. Zach Gelb here with you, Infinity Sports Network. Ryan Hot Take Hickey joining us in studio 15 minutes from now. So I got a text, I think it was 2 days ago, from a buddy of mine that goes, you know you're getting slammed online. And I'm like, what now? Seriously. I go, what happened that I'm getting slammed online now that it came up on your feed or you saw it? And he goes, one of his buddies texted him saying, your boy Gelb is getting slammed on Facebook. And I go, Facebook slamming me? What am I getting slammed on Facebook about? And there was an article written by the Daily Mail. Michael Strahan slammed for Detroit Lions comments after shock Washington Commanders loss. That's the headline. So I go, okay, I did criticize Michael Strahan. I don't think it was anything nasty. I don't think it was anything vicious. I didn't call Strahan any names. I like Michael Strahan, right? I just didn't like his opinion. He was sitting there on the desk of Fox after the Lions lost a playoff game. In a year that they're supposed to go to the Super Bowl, they have the number one seed. Number one seed. They lose to a rookie quarterback by 14 points. And Strahan's like, they should be really proud of their effort for this season and all the injuries that they suffered. I'm like, no one wants to hear that. If I'm a Detroit Lions fan, I do not want to hear that in that moment from the analysts on the desk. So that was pretty much it. I wasn't animated, right? I know when I'm going after someone. Trust me. I know when I am going after someone and I could be a prick, okay? I totally get it. I was just giving an opinion here. There was no emotion. There was no animation out of it. And there was no nastiness associated with it. Or, I'll read the tweet in a bit. Maybe I may misremember things a little bit differently. It could be like Roger Clemens misremembering things. So here's the article in the Daily Mail. Michael Strahan has been slammed by rival sports analyst Zach Gelb for his comments on Fox just moments after the Detroit Lions lost to the Washington Commanders on Saturday night. The Lions were beaten 45-31 by the Commanders in the upset of the weekend, with rookie quarterback Jalen Daniels stunning Dan Campbell and his team at Ford Field with an astonishing display. The Lions were the NFC's number 1 seed with home advantage and the pick for many to go all the way to New Orleans and win the Super Bowl. But analyst Strahan focused more on telling the Lions they should be proud of their effort given their injury list. The defensive line had been badly hit, rather than sad about their season being over. Quote, Washington went out there and played a great game, Strahan said. But for Detroit, what a great season they had. They should be proud of their season, and this is why they had so many injuries on that team, especially defensively, and they still made it this far. So then it goes, Zach Gelb disagreed, given that many had backed the Lions still to reach the Super Bowl, even with their injuries. And, they called me a podcast host. Podcast host Gelb felt Strahan missed the mark with his sympathy for Detroit after such a surprising loss. Gelb tweeted, there can't be a Lions fan on the planet who wants to hear Michael Strahan right now say how proud the Lions should be of the season they had with all the injuries they suffered. They were the number 1 seed and just lost in the divisional round. Not the time for that. And then it talks about in this article, in the post-game press conference, how Dan Campbell said the season was a disappointment, blah, blah, blah. And that was the end of the article. I'm getting shredded online for this article. Shredded. Like, do people have brains anymore? Like, the Lions had injuries. Yes. When I lived in Philadelphia, guess who also had injuries? The Philadelphia Eagles. They lost their MVP caliber quarterback. They lost their Hall of Fame left tackle. They lost their starting middle linebacker, and they lost their best special teams player. What did the Eagles do? They had 2 home games in the postseason. They had a bye, just like the Lions. And the road to Philadelphia with the number 1 seed, the road to Super Bowl traveled through Philadelphia. Eagles beat the Falcons. Eagles beat the Vikings. They went to the Super Bowl, and guess what? They won the Super Bowl. So this idea that just because the Lions had injuries that they were incapable of winning the Super Bowl, it's ludicrous to me. Like, do we have a lot of strong teams in the NFL this year? The strongest team is Kansas City. What do we always say? They're vulnerable. Philadelphia, most of us wanted Nick Sirianni fired in September, October. And you let a rookie quarterback with a team that you're better than on paper walk into the building. And I get it that Jalen Daniels is really special. I love Jalen Daniels. I'm a huge fan of Jalen Daniels. But, man, they beat you. And they didn't only beat you, they dictated the terms of the game. So save me the pom-poms and participation trophy and, we got to give the Lions credit for what they did this year. What did they do? They got the number 1 overall seed, and they got their ass handed to them by the Washington Commanders. So, sorry, I'm a devil. Sorry, I'm a terrible human being. I'm a POS. I'm a scumbag, right? I'm just a terrible person for saying that Michael Strahan, right? No one, an actual Lions fan with a brain that's been through so much pain, they don't want to hear that, you know what? Lions fans should be proud of their team. The Lions players should be proud of their team and what they accomplished this year. And maybe 2-3 weeks from now, you'll feel differently. But it's in the moment after the game. In a game where you were a big favorite, no one thought you were going to lose, you lost. It's not the moment to say that you're proud. I'm not attacking Michael Strahan. I have no beef with Michael Strahan. But if he was listening to us right now and he called in at 855-212-4227, maybe we'll text Jay Glazer and make sure that Strahan calls in. Like, I would just say, how can you be proud of this team right now? Like, they just lost to the Commanders. You listen to Sports Talk Radio in Detroit on the ticket. You think they're proud of this team? No, they're miserable. This team never won a Super Bowl. And they had a chance to do that this year, even with the bevy of injuries. So that was kind of my opinion on it. I love that it gets marketed as Michael Strahan is getting slammed by a rival analyst. I don't know if I would consider myself an analyst, but I like that there's an article out there and multiple articles out there about myself slamming Michael Strahan for his comments after the Lions lost to the Commanders. Where, Stu, you know when I'm slamming someone and going after someone and I really despise someone, I thought I was just giving my opinion there, and maybe people aren't used to the way that Zach Gelb, when he's calm, gives his opinion. And that's the idea that I was slamming Michael Strahan. When the tweet, I'm reading it once again, and I'll give you the punctuation so you can kind of see the tone of this too. There can't be a Lions fan on the planet who wants to hear Michael Strahan right now say how proud the Lions should be of the season they had with all the injuries they suffered. Period, space, next sentence. They were the number 1 seed and just lost in the divisional round, exclamation point. Not the time for that, exclamation point. And there was no all caps, just to be clear on that. I would say, in terms of attacking Michael Strahan, that's not like a 1.5 out of 10.
Would like the Daily Mail to write something on your Shad Khan segment from yesterday.
They would think I'm the angriest person on the planet. They really would. So I got a chuckle out of that. I got a good chuckle out of that. So Zach Gelb against Michael Strahan. That's a big beef. Big beef. Now, you don't see the comments on the Daily Mail, but I did get the link to the Facebook post where the Daily Mail, where it was posted, not by the Daily Mail, but by someone else. There's like 400 comments. And they're all like, who's this random guy going after Michael Strahan? How dare he? The opinion's right. Like, I did see some people be like, this Gelb guy is right. Like, what is there to be proud about with the Lions right now? The Lions had a good season, had a horrible finish, though. And when you make the NFC Championship game the year prior and you blow a 17-point lead, you got to find a way to get the job done this time around, and they didn't do so, even with all the injuries. What do you think is more difficult for Lions fans, Stu? Blowing a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game with a team that wasn't expected to be there, or having the number 1 overall seed and losing the divisional round?
I think this year, just because you had such high expectations going into the season, I think this is pretty tough to lose this early in the playoffs when you have kind of a path to get there. Yeah, that's tougher for me.
I don't think there's a right answer here. I mean, a wrong answer, because they're both really tough. But since you were already in the NFC Championship game, I do think it was the NFC Championship game because at least you were there. But yeah, there was more expected out of this team than last year. And at least you could chalk it up to, okay, right, the Niners are one of the better teams in the league. They just found a way to come on back. Nothing against the Commanders. And the Commanders could beat Philadelphia this weekend. Who thought the Commanders were going to be in this spot before the year started? Nobody. People thought the Lions are going to be in this spot. And you couldn't even get back to the NFC Championship game to get that redemption. So it's a tough question. There's no doubt about that. All righty, we'll talk some more football with Hot Take Hickey next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity
and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. And joining us in studio right now, I was in Cold Lanta with him. What are you laughing about? Hot Take Hickey is here with us.
Hello,
What's so
Zach.
funny?
I'm laughing on YouTube at the lower third that Samter put together. Who said before the show, when I saw him, he said, "Oh, well, actually, I have a positive lower third," and I did not know, what he was going to do. So I'm glad he recognized that the Ohio State prediction I got right. Sometimes a blind squirrel finds a nut. So I'm glad to come in here on a positive note compared to last week.
So on the lower third for Hickey, it says finally got a prediction right. Now,
finally is in all uppercase, bolded, underlined. Like it was like I haven't been in a drought that bad.
And just so people know, because this often gets confused, Samter makes those headlines. It's not me. So if you have a problem, and I know you don't have a problem with it, don't make your complaints with me. That's number one. Number two, I love the real estate that we have maybe purchased a little bit in your cabeza. Because as we're at the national championship game together, and by the way, how cold was Atlanta? It was, 8 degrees here yesterday? I walked home yesterday after the show. I'm like, oh, it's cold. But the 20-degree walk that I had for 15 minutes after the game, where they told me there was a complimentary shuttle leaving the game, and no one knew where it was, you found it very easily. And I ended up walking back to my hotel from there. That 15-minute walk, the next day, my body was still just like numb from how cold that it was in Atlanta. I've been to Buffalo, -3 degrees for a playoff game.
That's right.
I thought that it was colder in Atlanta than it was in Buffalo.
I'm just glad it didn't snow because we would probably still be in Atlanta if it snowed. So I'd rather have the cold there because if there was any precipitation or ice on the ground, this show is not happening from New York City right now. That's a promise because that city is just a disaster.
So the airport, I got there. My flight was, I think, 6:45 a.m. Eastern. It took off. So when I got there at 5 a.m. or whatever I got there, 5:30 a.m., to go get on the plane. I know you usually, traveling with you in the past, you like to get to the airport very early.
I do not want the stress of sitting in a security line looking as my flight's about to take off. I don't want that stress. I'd rather get there early and I would sit there for 3 hours, no problem, versus trying to cut it close.
No, I think it was when we went to Kansas City together for the draft. I got there like 30 minutes before the flight.
I could never.
No, in terms of like getting to the actual gate and checking through security. And I text you, I go, where are you at? And you're like, I've been here for 4 hours.
Yeah, I think at that point, just walking. Like, again, I'd rather sit there, be peace of mind. Like, okay, I'm here versus like, I hate the anxiety and the stress of rushing because at that point, like, nobody cares. If you're late, the plane's taking off and no one's helping you out. So, like, I could not imagine missing a flight. So I'm like, I'd rather get there way early in case there's traffic, security, whatever. Yeah. And just at least have the peace of mind where I'm not sweating, counting down the seconds of am I going to make it or not?
So I got to the airport at like 5:30, let's say, for my 6:45 flight. And I have TSA pre-check, right? So usually get in within 15 minutes or less. It was like a 25-minute wait for TSA. I saw like the lines were like longer than you would imagine for TSA pre-check. And then I saw videos, and you have pre-check, right?
Yes.
I saw videos when I landed, which I landed at like 9 a.m. Eastern, where the pre-check line was out the door in frigid Atlanta. So how bad was it when you got to the airport?
My flight took off at 9, so I guess roughly about 2 hours after yours. When I got there around 7, and thank God I got there early, 7:15, by this point it was so crowded, they put everyone in one line. Pre-check, clear, nothing, doesn't matter.
Really?
Everybody's in one line, and then because it was so long. No, what they did was because it was so long, you got into one line, and then like halfway down the airport, that's when they split you up clear, pre-check, or just regular.
So they weren't prepared.
But the line was so long already that by the time I got there, like 7:15, they basically said, it's all general. Everyone's just right here, then we'll split you off later on.
Yeah.
And then after me is when, like you said, the videos are out there. People literally outside.
Scott Van Pelt missed his flight.
Cold. I saw that, and that's very
funny. And he
funny.
let an expletive out.
That is very funny.
And Scott Van Pelt's like 6'6". He's a large dude, so him freaking out is a sight to see.
I figured he would fly private. I'm a little surprised that he was with us. But I do appreciate some like celebrity airport stars because it kind of reminds everyone they're one of us.
So here's how I know that we're in Hickey's head a little bit right now. And I'm glad that we're in your cabeza. Before the national championship game starts, Stu, right? You have Hickey sitting there, and we're sitting right next to each other, and he turns to me, and he goes, well, I know I'll get this prediction right. That's what he ended up saying. He goes, Ohio State's going to win this game. And you should have seen the look on Hickey's face when Notre Dame on the first drive, 18 plays, 75 yards, 10 minutes off the clock. And I just said to him, sure you're going to get that prediction right? And he goes, come on, I'm going to end up getting this one right. So congratulations. We'll pop the champagne for you. You ended up getting a prediction right.
We got it. We finally did it. Appreciate everyone's support. I know you've been with me this entire time. Thank you. We have done it together, baby.
So what's your thought off this national championship? Because you're always good for a good hot take.
I guess I'll say this. Like when you look at Ohio State in this playoff run, I think for me, I don't remember an Ohio State team being this dominant, this well-rounded in my lifetime in 30 years. Like,
You're talking about just in the 4 games.
Just in the 4 games.
Okay.
It doesn't make up for the entire, because I feel like for 80% of the season, they played down to their talent level.
Yeah.
Well, like they never
Nebraska.
looked, right. Like even like times against Penn
Michigan.
State, Oregon, obviously they lost. Their defense is not very good. Michigan especially, their offense looked bad. Like they never had a complete game for a long time. And I think I think you have to give Ryan Day so much credit for the fact that they hit rock bottom and were able to turn around at a time where like people were making jokes like, Ohio State, do they even want to be home, against Tennessee? Like, should just better off being on the road away from everybody. I think when you look at how dominant they were on both sides of the ball, that was very impressive. And the fact that Ryan Day was able to rally this team from the depths of hell to win a national title is one of the best coaching jobs I think we've ever seen.
Bob Custer in the YouTube chat. Hot take Hickey is thrilled with an 8.5 favorite winning? ?
I'm not thrilled. By the way, I got Ohio State beating Texas right the week before. So, like...
Oh, yeah, it's not a...
I'm just saying, like...
It's not a crazy
part of a joke here, but a win is a win, Bob. Jeez.
Man, you're going after Bob like the way that I suppose you went after Michael Strahan.
He's coming after me. Bob wants to dish it out. Bob better be able to take it, General.
In the rankings of college football coaches, Kirby Smart's still 1, correct?
Yes.
Where is Ryan Day?
2. Right behind him.
Who would you say is 3 then? Just wondering.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Can I throw a name in there?
Sure.
Doesn't it still have to be Dabo? I know you're going to say, Dabo hasn't adjusted. Dabo then just won the ACC again this year. He also has 2 national championships. There's not a lot of legacy coaches left in college football. Doesn't Dabo still have to be in the top 3? Like, say what you want about Dabo, and trust me, I have shredded Dabo through the last few years. I thought this was a very good year for Dabo Swinney.
The tough part, at least right now, because he has the hardware, like you said, the tough part is just the fact that Clemson has not been a national title contender for now 5 years. Like, that's a problem. Like, in terms of being a top coach, like, I can't right now think of another coach that we would put in the top 3 or top 5 where we have said for their team at no point in the last 5 years that they've been a national title contender. That's my biggest right now bone to pick with Dabo, at least saying he's number 3.
So for you to have a coach in the top 5, they have to be a national championship contender.
I would say at least recently, like not every single year.
How many coaches are there? Like your boy James Franklin ain't a top 5 coach then.
But I was saying, I think Kalen DeBoer's in that. But like Penn State's been in the Penn State was just in the Final 4. Well, like I know he's never broken through, but like Penn State's been a top 10 team perennially for the last like 4 or 5 years. Clemson's not been that. Like they've really not been close for a while. So, like, that's at least when we talk about Dabo, like, they've really not even been in the conversation. I know they got in this year winning the ACC.
But winning those 2 championships matter.
They do, but now they also get further and further away where it's like, again, I think top 5, like, coaches' rankings, I think they are,
You look at it more than now than what you
Yes. I don't, like, I think legacy has to, like, it does factor in, but I don't think it's, like, the overarching thing. Like, I think it can, like, Ryan Day, I think, for me, being him number 2, he's not number 2. Going into the year.
No.
Like, I don't mind like
top 10, but
putting more weight on what you're doing now.
Okay. So you have Kirby 1 and you have Ryan Day 2. Then who's 3?
It's great. I honestly don't. I have not thought about it, to be honest with you. Off the top of my head.
Can I give you a few coaches?
Sure. I think Marcus Freeman's in there.
I was going to say Marcus Freeman. You got Steve Sarkisian. You got Dan Lanning, just to name a few.
I also would put, I think Kalen DeBoer's in the mix.
Didn't make the playoff this year, though.
Yep. But he also made the national title game last year, which not many, Dan Lanning can't say that. I would probably say right now, I would still put Dabo. Dan Lanning at 3.
Dabo.
I know it's not a great playoff performance. They're the best team all year, in my opinion, in college football up until the Rose Bowl. I would say with how they've coached and the trajectory of the program, I put Dan Lanning 3 right now.
It's not good news for the future of the Oregon Ducks, and I like Dan Lanning too.
Goodness. Well, they come to Happy Valley this year, so I hope that's the case.
Well, yeah. Franklin won a big game.
Won a big game here. Let's go.
Penn State was 0-3 in the big games this year. Anyway, where are you at? You picked against the Bills, against the Broncos. You picked against the Bills last week up against the Ravens.
That's right.
Like, are we going to test the emergency alert system with this next pick? Where are you going, Bills, Chiefs? If I know you, I know who you're picking.
I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
It's tough to beat them at home. They're playing solid football right now. I'm worried about that Bills defense as well. I think it's going to have a tough time containing Travis Kelce. I like the way the Chiefs are playing right now.
Are you a Swiftie?
I like her song. I like her music. I'm not a diehard Taylor Swift fan, I guess, but she's cool to me.
So the streets are talking about you.
About me?
Yeah, they're talking.
The streets.
People think you have an animosity against the Buffalo Bills based off these 4 tweets. Now, let me read you the 4 tweets.
Okay.
And then you could respond, right? I'm just presenting you the information that has been put on my desk, and I am a man of fairness, and I let everyone respond. Ryan Hickey, trade proposal. Bears receive Josh Allen. Bills receive the 2024 first overall pick and the 2024 ninth overall pick. Not enough first-round picks, but who says no? By the way, nice job out of you. 1.1 million views on that video. Ryan Hickey. The Broncos beat the Bills today. Bo Nix has played like a 10-year vet. He won't be intimidated by a hostile playoff environment, and Buffalo's defense folds in the playoffs. Denver's defense will get after Josh Allen, and a lack of true number 1 wide receiver will haunt them. Broncos 27, Bills 23. 27 points to the Baltimore Ravens. 17 to the Buffalo Bills. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson thrashed the Bills on the ground. 225-plus yards rushing. Don't see how Buffalo's defense slows down Lamar and Henry. Also, for one 24-hour period, after the Colts stomped the Bills back in 2021, I may have said on CBS Sports Radio at the time that I'd rather have Carson Wentz as my quarterback than Josh Allen. That is from Ryan Hot Take Hickey. 4 tweets. Wrong, and wrong about. Do you hate the Buffalo Bills?
I have talked in the past that I may look, that was an in-the-moment Carson Wentz, Josh Allen. If you recall, the next day I took it back. That was
still
one.
Said it, though.
I said it, and then
like
look,
if I
it was
get on
in
the air,
moment.
hold on.
We all say things that, you get. The Colts, it was like 49-7.
Okay.
I'm riding high. I'm feeling good. I'm buying it. I'm all in on Wentz. Did I get a little too
emotional? Stupid?
Yes. Well, did I take my feelings too far? I was in my feelings, absolutely. And then Tuesday, clarity settled in. Okay, that was probably a wild take.
Off the Hickey drugs.
Yes, the drugs were off. I was sober then. I came in and said, okay, I take that back. I think I'm allowed in 24 hours. I'm not sitting here saying, okay, maybe now today, as Josh Allen's like an MVP candidate every single year, I'm saying, okay, maybe I was wrong about that and Carson Wentz stinks. I think that to me, I said it, I'm not denying it, but I think I deserve to be exonerated for a 24-hour rule.
Do you think Jets fans, if after the Jets beat the Patriots in the playoffs, if for 24 hours they said Mark Sanchez is better than Tom Brady, do you think they deserve to be exonerated? That's basically what you did.
I think in that moment, when you say things, you're not thinking clearly, I think, yes, you do have the ability to take it back.
Okay. So even with your justification, do you hate the Buffalo Bills?
I do not hate the Buffalo Bills. I feel like everything I said is logical. Well, like everything, like I did not.
Josh Allen?
I still, by the way, that had nothing to do with Josh Allen. I still stand by that 1,000,000%.
For only 2 first-round picks.
Fine, we can get on the first-round picks. You want to add more? Okay, but I think the logic behind that trade is honestly very sound, and I think still stands. But anyway,
yeah, let's trade a franchise quarterback in his prime for a guy that we're hoping becomes.
So credit to the Bills, I will say, I did not see this coming. They have gotten better as the talent has gotten less. That part of the time back in March when that trade proposal was made was they've cut a lot of guys because of the salary cap. They traded Stephon Diggs. Like the talent that they had going on paper into the season was the worst roster they've had around Josh Allen really probably since his rookie year. To their credit, they've actually had now the most well-rounded season they've had around Josh Allen in his career there. So they deserve a lot of credit for playing up, more than the talents that they have on paper. I do not hate the Buffalo Bills. I do not hate Josh Allen.
Okay, so why did they beat the Chiefs? Just wondering. I'm not saying it's crazy to say that the Chiefs are going to win, but what's your reasoning? How do you see this game going? Give me the Hickey prediction.
I think number 1, it's very tough to win in Arrowhead. Number 2, the Chiefs don't beat themselves, and that's my biggest concern coming out of the Ravens game was the Bills won that game not because they played great. It's because the Ravens beat themselves yet again. With 3 turnovers, with Mark Andrews dropping a 2-point conversion, like the Bills' offense did not play well at all. That Kansas City defense is very tough, and again, I think the biggest thing is they do the small things well. They are great on special teams. They don't beat themselves, don't commit a lot of penalties. They have a great defense. I don't hear about the referees. The referees are not in their pocket. And it's just, to me, I think when the margins are thin like that, I trust the Chiefs because right now I've seen them come through every single time where the Bills, to me, have to prove it.
Final score?
21-17.
Okay.
Lower scoring game.
I thought because knowing you hate the Buffalo Bills, you were going to go like 34-6.
No, the Bills are, again, if I started the show, maybe not started, the second segment of the show last week, Hick and Night, this was the best chance the Bills have in the Josh Allen era to beat the Chiefs, even with it being an Arrowhead. I'm very impressed how they're able to run the ball and play good defense.
By the way, I didn't know you had such a big fan in Philadelphia. John Kincaid, who I sat next to for the last two Eagles playoff games, he goes, I love the name Hick at Night.
Wow.
Because he knows that you are a Gelb guy. So he was talking to me about you, and he's like, I love the name Hick at Night. And he loves your shower videos. He actually told me this, that his wife thought the shower videos were funny.
Wow.
And then also he played your videos for his class at Temple University. Now, I don't know why we would let a Penn Stater infiltrate our fine communications program at Temple University, but Professor Kincaid is a big fan of Ryan Hot Take.
I may have to bring the shower videos back then. If I'm helping educate America's youth and telling them how to do, this is big.
Can I tell you my favorite part of the shower videos?
I'll put a
shower cap on?
No, I was going to say a graduation cap on, move the tassel every time.
Can I tell you my favorite part of the shower videos?
Sure.
Whenever somebody doesn't like the shower videos, they go, can we leave the drain plugged in? And that comment always gets me. Can we put the plug in the drain? I just find that's one of my favorite
I don't get
comments.
that because if you want to talk
they're basically saying they want you to
here.
die.
Yeah, I get that, but putting the drain in does not do anything. It only goes up to like your knee. You want to flood the shower, go ahead. It's not going past my knee. Because guess what? Then you got the tub emptying out.
Okay.
If you want to get technical here.
So do you want to make a bet on this Bills-Chiefs game? I'm like inclined. I have an idea. I don't know if you'll go for this idea. You have the right to say no.
Let's hear it.
So I think the Bills are going to win the game. Would it surprise me if Kansas City wins? Absolutely not. If the Bills win the game, we get to dunk blue cheese on you.
No, I'm out.
Hold on.
I'm out. I don't even want to hear.
If the Chiefs win the game, you get to dump barbecue sauce on me.
No, thank you.
Why not?
No.
Why not?
I'm not I hate condiments. I despise
How about
them.
ranch?
No, even worse.
Okay, good. At least that's the best thing you said in this segment. That ranch is even worse. Why not?
That's disgusting. No, absolutely. I'm not sitting around the rest of the day with, if I lose, ranch or blue cheese.
You can shower.
No. Here? Where?
Okay. Well,
I have to do JR show after this. I can't leave at 6 o'clock.
I'll get you off for the day.
No, no thanks.
I will go to management and say, hey, you got to go let Hickey actually go into the shower and do and take a shower.
Thank you.
Okay. Some say that means you're not that confident in the.
That's fine. That's fine. I'd rather be accused of that than risking smelling like blue cheese for the rest of the day, going on the subway after work and smelling like blue cheese and having maybe a homeless man try to eat me. I don't know. No thanks.
You think there's a chicken in the studio still?
That's not going to work. You can try. Stu, you can peacock all you want. I was going to say bark, but I don't think chickens bark.
I think you're afraid that, ever since having to dress up as a Notre Dame Fighting Irish. A little leprechaun.
I'm still upset about that.
Yeah.
Hurt. We should have been Penn State we saw on Monday night. Still can't believe it.
Stu, is he scared? I think he's scared.
Does sound a little scared.
Yeah. Think you're scared. How do you see the other game playing out in the NFC?
I think the Eagles win. I'm nervous, though. I don't like the way Jalen Hurts has been playing in this postseason. He still looks a little bit rusty, not reading the field well. Now he's got a knee injury where he's probably going to be limited at best. Mm-hmm. And Jaden Daniels is the real deal. He's playing well. He reminds you a lot of Tom Brady. The team rallies around him. Like, they're not. Philly's the most hostile.
Like Tom Brady, how?
Late game comes through.
Oh,
well,
okay.
like you feel like not play style, but it's like no, not at all. But it's like it's one of those beliefs of just like this guy in the biggest moment is cool, calm, and collected. Mm-hmm. The moment never looks too big for him. He has an answer for everything the defense is throwing at him. He looks like he's been playing this league 20 years and has the answer and been in the biggest moments of his career when he's not been, and it doesn't faze him. So I don't. Even though Philly's the most hostile crowd in the NFL, I don't think that they're going to go into Philly nervous or the crowd's going to impact them the way it did like the Vikings in 2017, where the Vikings just walked into that building and said, we have no chance.
And they scored first, too.
You're right. It wasn't like 7-0.
It was 7-0.
Opening drive. You're right. I forgot about that. Yeah, and then from there, it was just night, game over.
All righty. Entertain me here for a second.
Uh-oh.
No, it's nothing bad.
Okay.
You have 4 jobs left on the market. Saints job, what's your guess?
As to who gets it, I would say Mike McCarthy.
I would agree. Cowboys job.
Huh. Brian Schottenheimer. I mean, what do we say? Yes, man. It's going to be an uninspiring lapdog yes man. That's all Jerry wants.
Jaguars.
Feels like Robert Saleh. I don't know who's interested in that job at this point. Even with firing Trent Baalke, I would say Robert Saleh.
I would wait if I'm Joe Brady, but I would say Joe Brady.
Joe Brady's a very good one, and maybe he can get in the mix after this weekend.
If not, Robert Saleh.
Joe Brady would be number one if I'm Jaguars. I just don't know if he looks at that and saying that's a job I want to take.
Raiders.
I still go with Pete Carroll.
Latest tweet from our best friend, Josina Anderson. Developing. Former Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll is growing more interest from the Raiders brass to be their next head coach, per league sources. Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo's candidacy has also drawn interest from Las Vegas, as well as 2 league sources currently believe Carroll is in the lead. But again, this is still all up to the Raiders. So that's the latest.
All up to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josina.
Tommy Brady.
Tommy B.
You know, maybe
He's
Jim
smart.
Irsay could get him to go run the Colts. Apologize for all that Deflategate nonsense.
No thanks.
You would take Tom Brady.
Of course I would. Over Chris Ballard, of course I would. Over Jim Irsay, yes, of course I would. I'd take anybody right now.
Did you see what ESPN predicted the other day?
No, I did not.
So they talk league executives that they're making all these predictions. So one was like Tyreek Hill to the Patriots, which I don't see. It was Justin Fields to be the starter in Pittsburgh. They had a DK Metcalf going to the Chargers in a trade. One executive predicted the Colts will break the curse and they will win the AFC South. Can you see the Colts win the AFC South next year?
Right now, I cannot.
Okay.
No, I cannot.
You're a man of objectivity, I will say.
That I am. That I am.
How about Penn State? Can you see them win a national championship next
Look,
year?
I didn't put out a preseason top poll, but a lot of them are putting Penn State number one.
Yeah, I saw one today that they had Drew Aller as the second best quarterback in the nation.
Joel Klatt has Penn State number one. The Athletic has Penn State number one. Maybe
What a
they can
bunch of
steal
dopes.
Ohio State's defensive coordinator, which would
You have
massive.
the media in the back pocket, Penn State. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Drew Aller's the second best quarterback
do.
in the
Penn
country.
State has the media in their
Yeah.
back pocket.
Drew Aller stunk.
In one game.
Stunk.
He was bad against Notre Dame, absolutely.
His best moment of the season, was the second half up against USC.
That he played really well against Washington. I'm sure no one watched that game after Ohio State, but he picked apart what was a top 15 passing
Meaningless
defense,
game.
but,
Meaningless game.
Well, got them into the point where they could host a playoff game and get at the 6th seed.
You don't believe Drew Aller's the second best.
Carved up Oregon, by the way. We're just going to overlook that. Absolutely carved them up.
You don't.
Do I?
Yeah,
I would say
they
probably,
lost the game.
I would say, they scored 37 points.
They never had a chance to win.
They also couldn't get a stop defensively. It's not Drew Aller's fault.
But do you think Drew Aller is the second best quarterback?
I'd probably say no.
Okay.
But I think he's a top 5 guy, absolutely. Like, I think he's on a short list. No doubt about it. He's a very good quarterback. I'm pumped up.
He's got to show me more. That's all I'm saying.
He's got to take another step. I'm not saying that, if he plays the way he did in 2024 and 2025, that they're going to win the national title. Absolutely not. He's got to play better. They got to get better receivers.
So
they still have a long way to go, but
you know
so
what's going to
far, so
happen now.
good.
The Chiefs are going to win because you wouldn't take this bet. If you take
That's
the
okay.
bet, then you'll be wrong. But if you don't take the bet, then you're
You're trying to get. I'm not budging.
Okay.
Blue cheese is where I draw the line. No
Why?
thanks. Disgusting.
All right, I'm going to text Ryan Hurley. Make sure that you have to do this.
Good luck.
Imagine, hey, Ryan, we're going to fire you if you don't do this bet.
And tell JR get a new producer. Sorry.
There'd be people online.
There will be a lot of people online. Good
That
luck.
won't be difficult.
JR, have a full-blown search. Have fun. Be on the streets.
Give you
freezing my ass
No
off.
offense, Stu. I'll give you JR. Stu, and send me back like $200,000.
Wow.
Right?
How about that, Stu?
$200,000.
$200,000. That's wow.
I'll give you $50K, Stu. I'll keep the other $150. Right,
You
we're
think
in.
this company's giving you $200K?
No, it'd be JR.
Oh, you think JR is giving you
Don't go
$200K
after
for
the
Stu?
company. Don't go after the company. Yeah, I
You wouldn't give any to me
I
who's
know
unemployed?
you're feeling yourself now because we give you a lot of airtime and you have a
Wow.
show, but don't go after the company.
No, I'm just,
don't do that.
I'm just saying.
All right, you're coming
also
on
go
back.
after Stu.
We don't need to hear any more takes from Hickey. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
So let's do this. We just had a conversation with Ryan Hot Take Hickey where he thinks Ryan Day is the second best coach now active in college football, Kirby Smart being one. And then we got to number 3. Hickey was like, hummina, you know, I'm a chicken. I don't want to take a bet with you. Bakak, bakak. You know, that's basically what Ryan Hot Take Hickey was saying.
All you want.
Let me hear that one more time.
You can peacock all you want.
That's a great drop. That's awesome. You know who's become great with the drops, by the way? I listened to Bart last night, I couldn't go to sleep last night for whatever the reason was, so I tuned into Bart Winkler. Not that I was hoping that Bart would put me to sleep. But Carlos with a K, he has become a savage with those drops. Like they were talking about Maggie. I think they had 15 drops about Maggie Gray over the Buffalo Bills fandom thing that she did the other day. And they had drops of me, too. They had a lot of drops on that show. So Carlos has a folder. I would love to be able to have access to that folder and see what's cooking in there. But Stu, let's just go this. Do this. We'll go back and forth here. One pick each till we get to 10. Top 10 coaches in college football right now. I will start off. Kirby Smart still in that number 1 spot.
I would agree with you. I will go with Ryan Day.
Okay, so you do agree with Hickey that Ryan Day is in at number 2.
I do.
I'm going to then say Dabo Swinney when you factor in what he has accomplished in this sport. Just won the ACC again, and he's won 2 national championships. And there's not many coaches in college football that have won a national championship, let alone national championships. So therefore, I will go Dabo Swinney in at 3.
All right. Number 4, I'll go Dan Lanning. What he's done in Oregon the past few years has been amazing, and I feel like a championship is coming in the next couple of years.
Okay. So this is where you get tricky. So you end up going Dan Lanning there. When I end up giving you my next prediction, I'm going to go, you know what? They didn't have a good season, but they had injuries with the quarterback. It could be this guy's final season in college football. He has been a heck of a coach. I don't think people are going to expect him to be here, but I'll go Kyle Whittingham out of Utah. I think he is such an underrated coach. He's a phenomenal coach. And you have a lot of good coaches right now, but coaches that still have a lot to prove. So I will go with Kyle Whittingham.
Okay, my pick will be someone who does have stuff to prove, has a lot of pressure this year with Arch Manning taking over the reins, and that is Steve Sarkisian.
Okay. So you end up going with Sark. It's a good pick right there. Now, I got to give you a 7th coach here. So we're already into the 7 category. Kirby Smart 1, Ryan Day 2, Dabo Swinney 3, Dan Lanning 4, Kyle Whittingham 5, and Steve Sarkisian in at number 6. The next coach that I'm going to go with, Man, this is where it gets difficult. You know what? I know that they did not have a good season this year. They did beat Georgia. They had disappointing performances up against Oklahoma. There's no doubt about that. And Vanderbilt. But the guy had Washington a year ago. Washington in the national championship game. So I will go with Kalen DeBoer.
That is who I would have picked. Since you picked DeBoer, I will go Marcus Freeman just because of what he's done. It's only been a few years, but obviously getting to the national championship in year 3, I think that's pretty good, and he's on a pretty strong track.
Yeah, you know what? Freeman at 8 seems a little light, doesn't it? Feels like he should be higher up on that list. You know, it
probably
does.
needs to do it probably another. If he has more success the next 2 years, he'll probably be in that top 5 conversation.
Yeah, because that's a good point. Because up until this year, especially after the NIU game, you had Marcus Freeman hot seat talk. With him being on the hot seat. So it's just kind of one of those things where you had that one great year. I don't think he'll be Mike Norvell next year where bleep really hits the fan. Oh, you know how miserable Stu would be if that's the case. But I still think you need to see a little bit more consistency. Like, you make the playoff again, you win a playoff game. I think people then view Marcus Freeman as one of the best coaches in college football. All righty. This is where, it got tricky after like 3, if I'm being honest. Because Lincoln Riley doesn't have that feel anymore. You could go with Lane Kiffin. Norvell took a big step back. I think I'm going to surprise people here with this next pick. Where do you think I'm going? Just wondering.
I think you're going to Happy Valley for one of your favorite head coaches.
Yeah, I am. I'm going with James Franklin. So I'll take James Franklin at 9. Who's 10?
Yes.
Can I give you some options here?
You can. I have 2 kind of queued up.
Who are your 2 that are queued up?
Brian Kelly and Lane Kiffin.
Okay, Brian Kelly, Lane Kiffin. Can I throw you one more name in there?
Sure.
What about Josh Heupel?
I thought of him too. Yeah. I feel like it's one of those 3. I'll go Brian Kelly just because of how long he's been doing it. He has it's again another guy who's going to be under a ton of pressure this coming season, but I'll still go with Brian Kelly, who's at least made it to a national championship game, a playoff. So, I kind of like there's a chance he could be in that top 10.
Okay. So top 10 coaches right now in this exercise that we do. Kirby Smart 1, Ryan Day 2, Dabo Sweeney 3, Dan Lanning 4, Kyle Whittingham 5, Steve Sarkisian 6, Kalen DeBoer 7, Marcus Freeman 8, James Franklin 9, Brian Kelly 10. My first reaction on that, Stu, and I know we were in charge of the draft, I still feel like Marcus Freeman is too low. I do. That's the one that really annoys me with the way that this did shake on out. I know who Ack is miserable about that we didn't put in this top 10.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
The top 10?
Okay.
Dave Doran. I know that you're a big fan of his. I know he was one of your favorites for My on Football.
My favorite, not one of my favorite.
All right. That's the most I've ever seen you smile there, actually.
Yes.
All righty, we'll come on back. We're talking about the Cowboys next and the possibility of them hiring Brian Schottenheimer because it seems like that's going to be reality soon. Update time. Dave Doran's best friend, Rich Ackerman, standing by.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Me, Dave Doran, and Bob Stoops all going to have coffee together. It's been a while since the Cowboys last won a championship. It might be going to turn over the coaching reins to a first-timer, as reports indicate they're closing in on a deal with offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer to make him the team's new head coach. The 51-year-old has never held that position on any level. The 5 finalists for MVP were announced. Saquon Barkley is the only non-quarterback on the list. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Jared Goff are the other finalists. While Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is thinking about his future, head coach Sean McVay said they'd like to know sooner rather than later. Last year, Stafford agreed to an adjusted contract on the day the Rams reported to training camp. The NBA took Paris this afternoon, and Victor Wembanyama was on center stage with 30 points in the Spurs' 30-point rout of the Pacers, 140-110. The second-year player was 13 of 21 from the field, also had 11 rebounds, as Devin Vassell had 25 and Harrison Barnes 20 in the win for the Spurs, who are now 20-22 on the year. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie.
And this is Nick.
We're the Backstreet Boys, and you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, final segment of the day on this Thursday. Tomorrow, Drew Tranquill is going to join us from the Kansas City Chiefs. We are also efforting a NFL picks guest that I think you will enjoy and you are very familiar with, but we'll see if we can find a way to get that taken care of. Craig in the YouTube chat says, Zach, why the heck would Steve Spagnuolo want to leave the perennial Super Bowl favorite? Well, it's simple. He wants to be head coach again. Like, I know Spags. I've talked to Spags multiple times about becoming a head coach again and how I was frustrated that his name doesn't pop back up in the cycle. Like, it feels like it's an annual tradition now. Spags joins us once a year after the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl, and we always appreciate when he joins us. But the guy is a 4-time Super Bowl champion, has won 3 championships as defensive coordinator with the Chiefs, 1 with the New York Football Giants, and he was an NFL head coach with the Rams. He was 1-15, 7-9, and then 2-14. So he wants to be a head coach again. That's the bottom line. Now, he said that he's content. All right, that's what he said with never being a head coach again. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And he's in a great situation. But you're 65 years old, right? You just turned 65. You got a few more years left at a possibility of being a head coach. But like once you get into your 70s, you know, Bill Belichick couldn't get another job. And that's Bill after winning 6 Super Bowls. So you look at a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, at least he's getting interviews. Am I anticipating him getting hired in this cycle? Probably not. You know, if the Raiders don't get Pete Carroll, all right, then maybe it ends up being Spags. Maybe. Would you want Spags, Stu? But would Steve Spagnuolo, would you be okay with that?
I'd be okay with it.
But it wouldn't be, you would want either Pete
It's
Carroll
not
or
sexy,
Flores,
which
right?
is the problem. It's just not sexy, right? It's just not like Pete Carroll, who's, been to Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl, won national championship.
You could criticize the hire if you want. I know Spags is a friend, but that's fine.
No, it's not even that. It's just, I don't know. I just feel like I've kind of been led the last couple weeks here to where, okay, the Raiders might be in on some of these bigger names.
Yeah.
Like, I thought maybe Vrabel was one. I thought Ben Johnson was another. And now I'm thinking Carroll's the third. And I thought Dion was one. And I don't know.
So I don't think Dion's getting the job. I think Dion's staying in Colorado. That's pretty clear. And he hasn't even interviewed with the Cowboys. And remember how that name emerged for about 24 hours, that Jerry and him had a conversation. If it's not Pete, then it becomes fascinating. Because even though he's coaching in this league now, with the lawsuit, I still don't feel as if Brian Flores is going to be a head coach in this league again. And if you don't get Pete Carroll, then I think you would want a younger name. Like, there's not an established name out there that's had success before as a head coach that's looking for a job. So, like, a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, I get why you're not jumping for joy over it. But I would think for most Raiders fans, if it's not Pete Carroll, then you probably lean towards a younger coach, and Flores is in that mold, even though he's on the defensive side of the ball and not on the offensive side of the ball. Would you want Joe Brady? I don't know why Joe Brady would take the job without a quarterback, but maybe you talk yourself into, all right, you got Brock Bowers, you got the 6th overall pick, so you could get a wide receiver, and then you could do a nice job this year laying a foundation to set yourself up to get that quarterback potentially next year in the draft, because the Raiders are still going to be bad. So if it's not Pete Carroll, right, you said it would be Brian Flores. What happens if it's not Brian Flores then? Where would you go?
I guess at that point it would be Joe Brady.
Yeah, so.
And then we're starting to get to a point where, okay.
Josh McCown?
I don't know. I mean,
you're worn out with this coaching.
It's every year. Look, you read the names earlier. It's almost every year.
Yeah.
They're hiring someone new. And it never works.
Now, the next coach to get hired, you got the Raiders, the Jags, the Cowboys, and the Saints. I think the Cowboys are next. Now, I know that the Cowboys like to drag this out. Kellen Moore is still alive, so if it is Kellen Moore, then they're not going to be able to announce that yet. But doesn't it feel as if, with how bizarre Schottenheimer was, even though he's in the organization, how that name surfaced, and with the way that this has moved the last 2 days, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I would now be surprised if Brian Schottenheimer is not the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And if that's the case, I would announce it either later tonight or by tomorrow at the absolute latest. Do you feel as if the Cowboys are the next domino to fall here?
I do, and maybe they're just going to wait for Friday to pass so everyone's talking about the games and not the Cowboys come Monday. Not that they think it's a bad hire, but, it's the Cowboys. But
I think they want them to talk about it. That's like Jerry.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Like when Jerry elected to get rid of McCarthy, they finally announced it on that Monday night of Wild Card Weekend when there was a game. When he elected to part ways with Jason Garrett when the contract expired, they waited until I think it was that Sunday or Saturday, whatever it was in that Wild Card Weekend, when the Eagles did play the Seattle Seahawks. So I think they want to be in the news. I think they it actually. If it's not tomorrow, then I think it would come Saturday or maybe early Sunday morning, so they could at least be a part of those They're if they announce it from today until Sunday, they're a part of the pregame coverage. You're talking about who's the coach of the Cowboys and it being Brian Schottenheimer, even though the focus is AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game. So I do feel as if we'll know the Cowboys coach by Sunday the latest, and I do think it's going to be Brian Schottenheimer. But I do like how your brain thinks there, right? We're programmed. And how do you kind of get a news dump when it's not a popular hire? This would be a news dump-worthy name, but the Cowboys want to be in the news. They don't care if the hire is not going to be well received. And then after that, I could see the Jaguars, right? I think the Jaguars are going to have to make a hire in the next 4 to 5 days. So yesterday you find out the bulky domino. Today spent begging Liam Cohen to take the job. When Liam Cohen says no because he already said no because he didn't get rid of Trent Baalke then it's okay. Who do you pivot towards? But if it ends up being Joe Brady, you got to see what happens with the Bills and the Chiefs first. Because then you may have to wait until after the Super Bowl in order to be able to officially hire Joe Brady. The Raiders' job, it feels like it's not dependent I think you would agree that the Raiders job is probably not dependent on these two games this weekend. So the Raiders could be next up after the Cowboys. And then the Saints, I have no clue what the Saints are going to do. The Saints are the most vanilla team, I think, in this cycle. Like, you look at it, the Jets, all right, is the coach going to bring back Rodgers? The Patriots, Vrabel going there, that did speak volumes. The Bears getting Ben Johnson, huge, enormous, right? Caleb Williams. You look at these other four jobs, the Cowboys always have pop. The Jags have pop because of their incompetence of their owner and the bulky situation. The Raiders, it's the mystique and the mysteriousness, and you have Tom Brady announcing and also being the minority owner. What's the pop with the Saints? You got Derek Carr. You don't even know if he's going to be back. There's not a lot cooking there with the Saints. There's not a lot of intrigue with the Saints. And that, I think, is out of the 7 jobs that are available or were available, that's probably the most irrelevant one. Like, I feel like McCarthy, right, people are saying it. It doesn't seem, though, that the Saints have as much interest as I predicted McCarthy's going to be next Saints coach. But it doesn't seem like the Saints have that much interest. But that was a name that was floated out there when McCarthy said, yeah, I'm going to leave the Cowboys. It was the Bears and the Saints, Bears and Saints, Bears and Saints. So that first report makes such a big impression that it's engraved in all of our minds. Heck, Hickey even said it. McCarthy the Saints. I said it. Stu, right? I think you believe that McCarthy owns the Saints too.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem as if the momentum is necessarily still there in terms of the reporting of it from where it was right when McCarthy said goodbye to the Dallas Cowboys. So the Saints are, like, if they made their announcement tomorrow, yeah, we would react to it. Depending on who it is, we'd react to it either way. But it feels as if that's just the most flat team when it comes to the 7 jobs that were available in this hiring cycle. All righty, that will do it for this Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. We will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM Channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and as always, streaming on YouTube. And we'll have a big Football Friday. Not many Football Fridays left. Very, very sad. Very sad. But we have the conference championship games to preview, with the first one being the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. I still can't believe the Commanders are there. And then also in the AFC, you got the big one between Patrick Mahomes welcoming in Josh Allen for another playoff duel with the Chiefs and the Bills. Stu, Samter, great job as always. Big thanks to Ack. Big thanks to Mia O'Brien and Hot Take Hickey for stopping on by, and each and every one of you that listens and tunes in to this radio extravaganza. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.